The story began with the main character's story about the game in Yak von Coley for a long time, the Great Lindbergh Maytalk. That was one of the games that she was buying at the resale. I began to play in it through the gloomy atmosphere. Alice Schvidko threw it through the supernatural folding. The game itself burst into flames in the night, in the Great Mayette of Lindbergh. In the middle, the mast over the long gatherings appeared systematically, as it was said, that the Kiruyushchi, two on top, had died. After a long gathering of red Kalims, the character Grizz Charlotte spoke down. I thought you would never get past this. It was important, but it fit. Vaughn was brutalized to the main character, Dietrich, who suffered from injuries in front of her. Charlotte continued to talk to him. You got seriously hurt, Dietrich. Give you the right to choose? Dietrich did not recognize her. Vaughn continued to brutalize herself, extending her hand. Dietrich, will you continue to live without eyes or marry me? But I shouldn't have thrown the game like that. I'm not sure about the finale, since the main hero died first. Charlotte's chamber kills the main character with no words. I can't give you everything at once, even though everything has its price. The game endlessly restarted after the death of the main hero. Each time, systemic windows were displayed in advance. Until now, I myself haven't gotten into the cast for the role of the late Charlotte. She had bright eyes and an angelic appearance. The game itself began with the main character in the role of Charlotte's chambers. On the day of the cob, the Gri Bula is very angry. The cob begins to sprout when Charlotte and the stranger in the raincoat begin to fight in the face of great anger. The unknown stranger was embarrassed that he opened the door without permission. I just want to fight, not knowing who is alive here. Charlotte was surprised by the unknown. He had black hair like an impenetrable darkness and light violet eyes. Continue to be amazed at Yogo, to be truly amazed at what yonder knows. Tsebov Dietrich is the main character. She continued to marvel at her bright eyes, as they divined the mysterious depths of the ocean. Having thrown off the hood of his cloak, drops of wood began to flow from his guise. Marvel at the new one. Dietrich? Dietrich watched the stars know him. Charlotte stood holding the candle and never ceased to marvel at him. If you're worried about this situation, you'll end up overdosing it. Vibhakta, if you know me, I tell you first. The whole point is that you are the main hero. That evening, Charlotte stood and thought that this was the best story. As Charlotte immediately sensed the changes in herself, her body was left not in the state of collapse. Her eyes were burning with fire, but her tongue was numb. Charlotte's body was involuntarily drawn into the dark atmosphere, and a sly smile appeared on her face. The Grizz system has disappeared. The system, with a sly smile, began to speak through the mouth of Charlotte, asking the main character to go into the middle of the room. Change the color of your eyes to red. Vaughn extended her hand. We kindly ask for Lindbergh's mother, guest. The main character did not want to say anything, but the remarks came from the tip of her tongue against her will. The system continued to lure the main character into telling about the Lord Maitka. Gospodar is a good person. You can't love all anymore if you don't treat your guests with proper decency. Dietrich did not know what the news was from the dead. Continue to reconfigure. I tell you to come in quickly. The main character has played this stage many times. Let's talk about the group. Lindbergh's great work begins the moment Dietrich enters the room again. If you cannot find the Chamber of Truth, then it will be closed here forever, and your only chance to enter will not come yet. Turning around at the present hour. On top of the game, Dietrich seems incredulous, perhaps at the very least. There are many times of dissatisfaction with the fact that they don't provide food for me. Lady, I asked, do you know me from the stars? Reacting to his words with a chuckle, she said that she would come to the middle of all food. Not in the context of Dietrich's independent life, the main heroine could only scream in her thoughts. No, just now you are in doubt. Dietrich doubted for a long time, but rather than wanting to know the girl's star, he probably knows him first, so he won't. When Dietrich walked into the middle, the doors automatically closed behind him. Now you can't leave by yourself, Dietrich stammered, putting his hand to his breasts and asking doubtfully, now I'm almost ready for food? After the system deceived him into going in the middle, he conveys the cherubania to the heroine herself. The eyes change the color from red to black. Having seen the freedom, She thought that the game was going to end soon. Dietrich began to get very nervous, and even then they didn't let him in. Charlotte sharply confirmed that she simply knew him, marveled at having drunk it. Charlotte remained calm, marveling at him, and said that she simply knew him. 3 minutes approached Charlotte with words. Vibacht. But I still can't follow the course of your thoughts. Charlotte thought it was not important. But now it's closed here. There's only one way to get out of the marker. To reach the finals. To reach it, you need to go through all 5 surfaces of the map and find the room of truth. Having looked at the descent, there is a red kilim, which leads to another one on top. Ale це майженot можливо зробити. You can get into the room as soon as you reach the 5th point on top of the Great Maka. In words, it is easy, but Vikanati is important. In the rooms, the mat is a powder, so that you can take it from the first one on top, create a fragment, and move on to the next one. Once you collect all the fragments from the top to the 5th, you will find a key that will open the Chamber of Truth. Having blown through all the nuances of the game, Charlotte expressed, Dietrich should remember that tomorrow is an important day. Dietrich bov obureni. Raptovo they started talking about tomorrow. I just want to feel like you knew me. You said that you would tell me. Having gotten angry at Charlotte, she didn't say anything to the Yumu. Dietrich decided to leave this secret place. They went to the door, found the handle to open it, and said, I'm really sorry that I came here so voluntarily. Dietrich tried to open the doors, but the stench wouldn't budge no matter how hard you tried. Once you come here, you won't just leave. Having pulled with all his might, he couldn't open the doors and began to panic. He turned to Charlotte and hooted, What's on the right? Charlotte, the little girls marveled at the death of the deceased. Dietrich opened the door to go out. Vona knew the scene. Her eyes immediately changed color, and the system again flushed her body to flush out the replicas. Dietrich angrily rushed to Charlotte in order to dismiss the explanation of what was happening here and why the doors were closed. Dietrich was very upset. His accusation was distorted by anger. He shouted angrily at her, Why are the doors closed? Before the heroine's eyes, a scene was reenacted that had happened to her many times. It was her fault that she said, Foolish people, we ask kindly to Lindbergh's cards. Now you cannot leave him until you find the Chamber of Truth. The light of the candle went out, and Dietrich was shocked by the words about those who now cannot go out. If you want to exit the map, then go through all the surfaces and find the room of truth. Then you can exit. Until then, it's locked here and you can't leave. Charlotte's words shocked him greatly, and he could not say anything. The heroine is confused by both Charlotte's chambers and Dietrich, the main character of the game. Another game was about to begin. Dietrich did not believe his words and decided to try different methods to open the doors. Vin attacked him with his sword. The ale was clear. The aura of the sword did not manifest itself, and even the blows with the sword did not leave rags on the doors. In the panic, we are once again asking in Charlotte, what is happening? What's going on here? Who ordered you to earn so much? The system has already lost control of Charlotte's body. The heroine began to reveal herself. Find the room of truth, I already said. I've set the food! Dietrich shouted in frustration. Having clicked, you decided to accept reality and try to find that room. Dietrich waited with Charlotte and headed towards the rooms to make jokes right away so that he could leave quickly. On the Havilina, he stood up and huddled behind the sword, drilling and drinking. Do I really need to know what the Chamber of Truth is? Charlotte was only amazed at him and his thoughts. Possibly, Dietrich is very angry because of those who are in a hurry. You have to hurry, go through the great masthead to get out, and continue to kidnap the people about whom you can pay. People who can be kidnapped behind the scenes. But it won't be easy. There are a lot of important points here. In the game, Dietrich was represented as a kind character. Being overly righteous, it is important for him to go through this process. Perhaps the rice itself began to think about these people. The stench always melted into my thoughts and helped me to go further. In your own mind, none of their desires will be the sole purpose of your life. There is only one reason for living. The main character did not go through this game until the end, so she doesn't know who these people are and what wines she steals so blatantly. Several days have passed. Charlotte walked through the corridors, listening to Dietrich. Even though everything was too quiet at all times, Charlotte found the bloody dead body that lay beyond words. I didn't think he was dead. A system alert was displayed about the intrusion of the steel psyche. Vona was calm and thought about how to work with him. She was very calm and did not show fear, not caring for those who lay dead in front of her, covered in blood. Charlotte reminisced about her first days in the game of the Great Lindbergh. I got into Chew Group a long time ago. It's been a while since I suddenly came to your place and realized that I had become Charlotte's chamber. The game didn't end, but the hour I spent here on my own became more and more intense as time went on. It was not at all important to me. Tormented by important thoughts, Charlotte marveled in one direction and guessed the important hours on her own in the dark. As soon as I lost my mind, my steely psyche was triggered. By regulating my emotions, I felt like a doll. Through the regulation of emotions, I didn't get out of my self-importance. But because I wasn't afraid of anything, it was worse. Dozens, hundreds, perhaps thousands of times, she hit the button and squeezed the door handle to open it, but everything was gone. What will happen to me in the future? Seeing these thoughts, a sense of dread appeared on her face, and her eyes were outright alarmed. Due to strong anxiety, everything began to fade away in front of me. I'm guilty, and I will lose it alone. Isn't there a chance of death? Looking hopeless, Charlotte sat down on the ground, pressing her legs closer to her. Locked up in this prison, in the dark, where there is no sun, Charlotte was sitting on the table. Her posture was closed. She was embarrassed by the fact that she would have to remain closed all her life. In the dark room, where the dark light of the month fell on the white lilies, their withered leaves fell heavily on the kilum. Charlotte sat embarrassed as a flash of light flashed behind the window, and she was shocked by the lack of sleep. Charlotte turned around to the window to see what was going on there. There was a strong shock in my eyes at the sight of the sick man. The dark eye, covered with light hair, reflected shock and excitement. It was not enough to stand at this moment. Having realized what the sign would be if the main character was coming, Charlotte quickly ran along the corridor, touching the hem of the cloth. Charlotte ran to the open entrance doors, where the man stood by the cloak. In the same vein, the main character. Her face showed shock and hope as she marveled at the main character in the cloak. Vaughn asked, Dietrich, turning around at the moment when Dietrich was seriously injured. For the decade that we didn't fight, we became a bloody mess. After Dietrich went into the motherboard, I deprived him of it. It is his responsibility to find the chamber of truth. But he died, and that's the problem. Charlotte stood up and shook off her apron and said, Check out the 3 rubles. I'll go get the wounds that heal your wounds. Charlotte went searching for faces. Bright corridors, great quantity of candles for lighting, luxurious linens. Having recognized the faces, she turned to Dietrich and began to rejoice. The wound began to heal. Having seen the beauty of my figure, Dietrich flattened his eyes. His face showed minor injuries. With his eyes wide open, Dietrich invited Charlotte to stand in front of him as he asked him, Prischoff du Tami? Dietrich. In disbelief, Charlotte marveled at him, holding a potion in her hands to heal her wounds. I stood up and said, without understanding what was happening, Dietrich stormed out at Charlotte. He grabbed it over his shoulder and grabbed it. Dietrich pressed Charlotte to the ground. His hand did not deprive her of every chance of escape. There's no way you're going to collapse. Dietrich put his sword to Charlotte's head. She lay there with a calm, revealing expression and marveled at him. His eyes burned fiercely. Infuriated, Dietrich pressed the sword to Charlotte's head. Why are you here? Dietrich asked. What have you earned with me? Charlotte continued to feel calm and confident in her thoughts. I just forked you. Reaching out her hand to Dietrich's bare breasts, she spoke. Having been injured, having spent my knowledge, I forged you. We asked for concerns about these actions. What are you doing? Charlotte soaked Dietrich's bare torso. Doesn't it hurt? Having fed 3 shocks with these words. You say they bullied me? Charlotte confirmed. So I am the only one. Will you let me out? Dietrich released Charlotte, and she began to get up from the pretext, smiling. It takes a lot of time to get close. Charlotte straightened this robe like Rapto, Dietrich said. All this day I have been walking and opening rooms like a god. There is no way out anywhere. Don't break the windows, don't glaze the doors, don't get rags on them, no matter how hard you try. Not in the mood for self-exertion, Dietrich got down on his knees, clenched his blood-covered fist, and began to ask for help. Dietrich is pitifully good. I will give away everything you spare. It's so pitiful to wonder if I could have gotten away with it. Wiebach, it's not possible. Dietrich, in full disguise, looked up at Charlotte in shock and said, What? Charlotte laid a light hair behind her ear. I told you, find the room of truth. This is the only way to sign out. Charlotte carefully monitored Dietrich's reaction. Vin enemies. It was the same for me. Not surprisingly, as Dietrich walked closer, the pits were visible under his violet eyes. Vin said, This is the lighthouse. Above Dietrich's head, a systemic sign appeared about the future of the system. In Charlotte's thoughts. What is it? It's late afternoon. It is clear that what was going on over Dietrich's head began to show the role of Charlotte. The 99th soul of Dietrich entered into the motherboard. This wine will be opened especially for the new one. Charlotte, do everything for the guest. Pobachevshis written in the system window, she was greeted. My role, what? Is it already 99 years old? I know these scenes. In the great Lindbergh story, the skin began to have its own story. And in hell, the stench was called scenes. What's wrong with the system? Charlotte, the chamber of the great master, will do everything for the guest. Vikonita Zavdanya. Hanging over Dietrich's head. What are the characteristics? No. Why are the indicators of vitality and vitality so low? Having visited Dietrich's camp in the system, Charlotte was even more enraged at how bad everything was with his camp. Dietrich restlessly covered his torso with his shirt, thinking that Charlotte would be surprised at him, and asked, Where are you wandering? The trouble is on the brink of death. If in such a situation there is a monster, then it's easy to waste money. I'm talking about him. Charlotte was concerned about Dietrich's life and quickly grabbed his hand. Why are you working now? She said, wriggling. Dietrich. With one hand, Charlotte began to climb higher, to the Dietrich valleys. Worried about their actions, you become even more worried. Dietrich Bov Prigolomshiny. Charlotte, standing on her knees and holding him behind the valley, sounded anxious. Let's eat. Think about your yoga camp. An exceptional person, if you don't eat, you won't immediately, but that's the great Maytalk of Lindbergh. If the characteristics decrease, it is possible to immediately die. It wouldn't be bad for a character to die. Dietrich's face, covered in rags, showed dissatisfaction. Marvel at Charlotte, as he said, Don't want. Charlotte changed her mind. Don't need to eat? You want to find the room of truth. He shook his hand and repeated, Don't want. Dietrich escaped from her hands and grabbed the sword. Charlotte is thinking, They don't trust me. Looks like I'm still angry. Olivan can eat. Charlotte, thoughtfully staring at Dietrich with her bright blue eyes, grew darker, as if they had killed him. Having died, what can you earn or eat? Ready to act, Charlotte was decisively let down by pretexts. Charlotte said, If you don't eat, I'll come into your room in the middle of the night. Dietrich sat in shock and marveled at her. Having prepared myself for shock, Dietrich was not satisfied with Charlotte's words and said strongly, Have you completely lost your mind? Charlotte revealed how Dietrich is in the furnace and is eating meat. She said the same thing. I will attack you with force. We rise from the pretext of having said, V is not responsive to reason. Charlotte's words, If you don't want anything, then just follow me. Charlotte led Dietrich to the distance, thinking about her own things. I think I'm here. I've learned so much that I'm going to get indignant here. Charlotte went looking at Dietrich. A terrible threat was heard, and I heard it was behind me. Kok viraz oblicia not duje. Charlotte chewed on these words. Don't brag. The hedgehog is delicious here. If it's not tasty, you have to leave. Seeing Charlotte's words, Dietrich's face became frowning. His thick black eyebrows frowned, and his mouth curled. Continue to follow Charlotte and raise your hand to the sword. Dietrich said, I don't hate people like that. Charlotte sang and led Dietrich to the place where she said, Yak Skoda. Such as you I truly deserve. Dietrich asked. Are we going straight ahead? Charlotte sang loudly. You really don't have to brag. In general, my doubts have been cleared. I've never lost my life in this map. It's always a system map. Before Charlotte's eyes, there was a map of everything. It was possible to use it to store everything that was in the rooms. After the resettlement, I was very careful to check out the map, which shows monsters, rooms, and other objects. The stench continued to be chewed like a rat before the eyes in the system window. Stalev's psyche is involved. I rang the same number of letters. It would be good if the map shows the room of truth or powder. Charlotte grabbed the doorknob. Come, Dietrich, Charlotte said as she opened the door. It's far away here. The stench brought before them a monster similar to a great dog. The monster shook people, opened its mouth, and great cries came out of it, and the mud flowed down from its mouth. That's right. Within this hour, your guest has arrived. Standing far away in the middle is a monster resembling a Vovk. From his pasture, a slush dripped onto the mat. Having treated the monster, Dietrich prepared for the attack. Charlotte, ever the steel psychic, stood calmly without collapsing. Charlotte glanced at the monster threateningly. If you dare to scratch him, you will immediately die right here. As Charlotte spoke, the monster caught him in the act and his hands froze. The red eyes, which were so bright before, are now healthy. With a menacing expression, Charlotte fixed the monster with her gaze, staring at the new Swedish approach. Before the menacing Charlotte, the monster, who had recently been fearful, began to tremble and became mute as a little Tsutsun. Are you not attacking us? By asking Dietrich, Vaughn confirmed. He seems to be quite reasonable. The monster approached them and began to roar. Afterwards, Charlotte fed it. Why are you standing there? You won't be lost. Feeling these words out of fear, the monster quickly ducked. If the monster is ready, Charlotte happily asked for Dietrich to the table. What's wrong? So as much as my soul yearns, there was a great variety of herbs on the table. Jakby Dietrich was not with me. Vin fought with monsters and fell without a clue. Furrowed eyebrows, Dietrich asked incredulously. Who has cunning? Charlotte confirmed. What kind of cunning? I'm just old enough for you. Dietrich sat down at the table. Why are you so kind? Charlotte keeps an eye on him. I thought you were hungry. This is not yours on the right. Why don't you show off when you catch my eye? Dietrich stands up at the table. Well, so as not to bully you, I'm going to fight. Charlotte quickly grabbed Dietrich's hand to stop him. No! I've already spoiled you, so you have to eat. Dietrich is not understanding this, putting his hand to his head. What the hell? You really don't understand. There you go, pulling it across the table. No, if you can't eat right away, you'll waste your money. Szczob zupełnity yogo wybaczyłaś. Vin looked at her in shock. Charlotte continued to chew her hand. I'm not asking you to get involved. Are you not angry with me? Vibak, can you eat? Explore the actions of Charlotte. Dietrich said it was important not to gain anything, but to accept her proposition. Having left the room, Dietrich sat down at the table. Charlotte, without even looking at it, continued to chew carefully. Charlotte let go of Dietrich's hand. He leaned closer to the table and asked, As we sing, will you really stand up to me? Charlotte, bursting with joy, turned around in her seat. So I won't bother you any more. With 3 pieces of cutlery in his hands, Dietrich looked with disbelief at the luxurious herbs that generously filled the table. Dietrich decided to dare to eat the food that was in front of him. Charlotte only watched out for this as she did. Wary of this, as Dietrich is, Charlotte propped her head on her hand and sank into a powerful thought. There is good. Dietrich walked calmly until he noticed Charlotte's gaze on him. It's important to be careful, and you're going to be careful. Why have you been marveling at me all hour? After drinking Dietrich with wine, Charlotte swelled 3 times at her nutrition. I'm happy because I'm just amazed at how you are, Vona said with a chuckle. Dietrich choked on his rapt words. Dietrich denounced the wind with his hand, on which the hedgehogs had lost their traces, and rose sharply. It's time for me to go. Standing up at the table, Dietrich spoke firmly. I got what you wanted, but don't bother me here anymore. Charlotte laughed with relief and joy, hoping that Dietrich would be found. Well done, you can go now. Charlotte let Dietrich go. Having filled your little boat so much, what time do you not die? Dietrich Pischoff was given room to search. Charlotte marveled at Dietrich's back as he walked along the corridor, and looked over his head with constant fatigue. Charlotte sat with her hands clasped and lost in thought. Perhaps I boast to the one who suddenly starved him to death. And he died. What is it? Before Charlotte's eyes, it appeared systematically in which way it was written. The system has been updated, and a new function has been added. Charlotte's re-importance? Did this happen in the world? It was written on the system log. Want to check out Charlotte's updates? Charlotte decided to accept the new system that was important to her. With a calm expression, she pressed on so. Renewal of the mat. The ability to kill a small number of monsters. Turn up the windows until bright. Vibrati sauce. Charlotte stared in amazement at the system. What's all this? Mitya Vikon, sauce for the steak? Charlotte died exhausted. The menu was so bad that it was less than decently rich. This is too much of a stretch for them. Charlotte fell asleep, leaning against the table with her thoughts. Such senseless nonsense. I'm sorry for everything. I'm not quick with them. That's what I thought just yesterday. Dietrich fought the great stone golem. The monster attacked Yogo with one hand. Charlotte came running to the sounds of battle. Vaughn shook Dietrich, who was fighting off the golem's attacks with his sword. Dietrich clenched his teeth, exerting great force to fight off the golem. I was under all the tension, under the pressure of the enemy. A village appeared before Charlotte. Attack him without hesitation, Dietrich, and kill him. Vona danced with the sauce. Having sipped the steak sauce, she quickly ran to the side, Dietrich screaming loudly. Dietrich! Systematically you can choose. Do you accept the task? If you happen to see it, you will be subject to a fine. Returning to the hour before the incident with the monster. The world has begun. It's strangely systemic, but the routine has gone its way. I've been tidying up my desks so that I want to occupy myself here. For additional help, the windows were raised to a bliss. Dietrich continued to trace the keys of the various doors of the rooms, searching for powder for the key. It was time for supper, so I was getting ready to eat. Arriving at the room with him, I noted his absence. Charlotte opened the door to go in, when a plate of rapto flew in her direction. The plate flew into the door and broke. Stalev's psyche is involved. Charlotte stood calmly in the doorway. A dark, black atmosphere enveloped the distance. Surprised, everyone here struck the stage, and Dietrich repels the attack of the great terrible monster with his sword. The cutlery was scattered in different directions. The plates broke as they flew into the walls. The saws and knives were stuck in the walls. Charlotte stood calmly with her hands clasped against the wall. The plates flew past her and broke. Vaughn was just thinking about the management, what the system saw. It was necessary for him to attack Dietrich in order to kill him. This is what the system was talking about? Looks like I need to attack Dietrich. If I don't lose money, I'll be angry. There was a systematic choice underfoot. Do you accept the task? If you fail, you will be fined. Ale, I don't want a fine. Charlotte turned her gaze to see what was on the side. Dietrich. What? Looks like it's getting closer. Charlotte marked Dietrich, who had thrown the golem before her. With clenched teeth, try to avoid falling into turbulence. Angry with this situation, Dietrich shouted ahead. Why are you bothering here? Slow down, it's not safe here. I'm sorry for the experience, Dietrich. Vona glanced at him and began to think. I can't. I have a job here. Infuriated by this behavior, Dietrich asked. Have you come to respect me? Charlotte continued to marvel at him. Marveling at Dietrich, he calmly but sang in his voice. I didn't come to help. Hire me. I'd like to try it. Don't boast. If you really want to help, then work with this monster. Well, I can hear you better. Charlotte, for the sake of her coolness, began to evaluate the golem. A light shone in her eyes. Let's get ready. Monster, you cannot Kuruvati. The golem stood covered in cuts like Dietrich's sword, but had no hand. Charlotte folded her hands and said mockingly, No, this guy has a head. Dietary attacks in words. What? Dietrich covered it with his hand. Just keep moving as long as you stir. Vaughn was shocked. Are you praising me? Charlotte, having noticed Dietrich fighting the monster, began to think deeply about what she should do in this situation. It's good to fight the monster. I have to deal with the affairs before the monster overcomes me. How can I punish this person without causing harm? It is also necessary to earn money so as not to waste any of your trust on me. Vaughn was watching Dietrich's fight with the golem and was thinking about what to do when an idea came to her head. Dietrich emerged from an important battle. His breathing became more frequent and accelerated. No matter how much I eat, nothing comes out. Dietrich was busy fighting the monster. Charlotte screamed like rapt. Dietrich! The stinks turned in this direction. System window. You got the Czech Brian sauce. Charlotte sank into her hands, dancing with words. I'll hurry up and get better. Dietrich, getting angry, began to dance, as if Charlotte were going to run with the dance. What are you going to earn? Charlotte slurped Dietrich's sauce in her face. Seemingly unsatisfied, he tried to cover himself with his hand. Otherwise, it would be too late. After drenching Dietrich with sauce on the steak, she slapped him to kill him. The golem extended his hand to them. Charlotte knocked Dietrich down for a forgery. The sword was in his hand. The golem has completely lost its respect. Charlotte pressed Dietrich to the point of forgery. Sauce to the steak, pour into your eye, and you will experience a sharp white. Charlotte's bright eyes sparkled with joy. She reached her goal, as if she had finished what she had planned. Dietrich viciously wiped his eyes with the sauce. Charlotte could become a Visconti. Wow! I specifically attacked at that moment. Having wiped his eyes with the sauce, Dietrich said dissatisfiedly, "What kind of guy? What did you squish in my eyes, cut off?" No, no sauce. Dietrich was shocked that he had overfed. What did you say? Charlotte turned her gaze and interrupted him. Check it, look there. Charlotte laughed as a golem rises. The damage that has happened in the foreseeable future has already appeared. Dietrich began to stand up sharply, preparing for battle. Let's go bye-bye, monster. Calm down, Charlotte. Don't sit still. At this moment of calm appearance, Charlotte showed a sly chuckle. Vaughn came up with something really cool. Can you stand on your knees? Charlotte fed into the golem. He obeyed her order and got on his knees, knocking his head. Bernie, Dietrich asked. Well, you said that you can't kill monsters? I justified myself. I couldn't do it before, honestly. Why can you do it now? Asking Dietrich. There was a chuckle at Charlotte's face. Vaughn confirmed. Because she attacked you. Dietrich sits not understanding what to say. System window. Let's get ready. A lot of details about the group have been blocked. Dietrich began to get up. God, I was completely out of my mind if I paid for a normal rose. Could you please get angry? Charlotte began to get up and think. I understand that it is unacceptable to me. Is it too much to openly hate me? Trying to get up, Charlotte stumbled and began to fall back, her body collapsing uncontrollably until Dietrich. Charlotte fell for Dietrich. Their faces were very close. The moment caught up. Surprised, they marveled in their eyes alone. Dietrich of obsessions with the actions of Charlotte. What are you doing? Vaughn quickly tidies up her hand. No, check. I was about to get up. Charlotte felt a sense of self-deprecation. The eyes became cloudy, the appearance became pale, and the lips began to tire. Charlotte began to vacate the shelter. Vona was shocked. What? In the entire hour that I was Charlotte, this had never happened before. The blood didn't shed, it began to drip onto the apron. Dietrich began to wiggle. Are you all right? Charlotte can't get a word through. He ponders the reason in annoyance. Tell me, why is this happening? The system burned down in front of Charlotte's eyes. Choking in pain, she looked up importantly. What's this? In the system window. Newly important, now you can subdue the monster just once. May have a side effect. May have a side effect. Get out of my head. Why is it so important that it is written in such a small font? Charlotte! Hug Dietrich, trimming her head in order to avoid falling when she begins to lose her sweetness. Dietrich Bov Prigolum Sheni. Raptova's waste of Charlotte's information made him sick. Why did she spend her money so quickly? Dietrich looked at his hand. It was covered in Charlotte's blood. Shocked, saying, It's bloody, what's wrong? The rapt denunciation of Dietrich was victorious. His bright violet eyes widened just now, beginning to guess the unpleasant hours. Seeing the blood before his eyes, rumors began to flash about how people were dying before his eyes. Rizar shouted with an arrow in his voice, Mr. Dietrich, it hurts even more. People were filled with tears. When will my son return? And an angry man with a frowning expression looked out, his mouth wide open, and he screamed, Clueless little freak! Hit it! Hit it! Broad shoulders. Dietrich thought about the past, and was filled with thoughts that brought pain and doubt, without depriving him of his peace. Suddenly, the wind began to feel an alarming trembling. Until recently, the monster that had not killed them had risen to respect. Having spent her knowledge, Charlotte dreamed about the past days. After I moved into Maytalk, I kept hearing the knocking on the door. Charlotte, sitting on her knees, knocked on the door happily. Rant, help! Thank you. I want to log in. Vaughn stomped the doors, rubbing her fingers until they bled. I was wrong. Bula is wrong. I knocked, frayed my nails, etc. Sloth flowed from my eyes. There she was, in strong suspense, tearing at the doors, her hands bleeding. Hello, I beg you so much. Be kind, Charlotte stammered, feeling a sharp, piercing pain in her hand. The doors did not open, but there was a shock. Vona looked at her damaged hands, which had begun to heal in a magical way, without leaving a trace of water. Charlotte sank to her knees, and her legs began to tremble greatly out of fear. It's amazing, scary. I don't wash my body. It's really dark in here. Scary. In the dark corridor, crying, Charlotte chewed on the blessings. I didn't want to bother anyone. With the clicking of fingers, Charlotte calmed down and, placing her hand on the door, said, I know that no one can help me. A systemic warning appeared above her. Stalev's psyche is involved. Charlotte sat down, exposing herself. I won't be able to leave at all. Stalev's psyche is involved. Charlotte opened her eyes raptly. Vaughn was very shocked by what she dreamed. Charlotte lay there, dazed by her sleep, and marveled at the mountain like a hill. You woke up. Vona looked away. Surprised, Charlotte stood up and asked, Dietrich, did you move me? He sat with his head bowed and bowed. Dietrich asked for embarrassment. Have you wasted your money because you overdid it if you turned into a monster? Vaughn said calmly. It doesn't seem to be the case. Also in my thoughts. To think so, I was not in complete control. What's wrong with you? Dietrich's eyes filled with tears. Were you worried about it, knowing why we would bore you with blood? Through me, in my thoughts. No, I didn't know. Dietrich felt guilty for Charlotte's camp. His hands began to become very afraid and began to shake. Vibakta. Dietrich, shaking, kneeling, and bowing his head in front of Charlotte. Vaughn marveled at him in amazement. What are you doing? Dietrich lost his pride by asking Charlotte. I bless you. Let me in. I need to log out. I need to find someone. Only a little, which will be enough. The stench cannot live without me. I need it. Thoughts. I can't log in myself, Vaughn said calmly. Finish your drink, get going. It's not in my power to let you go. Charlotte's words screamed at the heart of the anger. Vin hummed. Why you let me in here? Dietrich stood up abruptly and began to speak loudly. Why are you hiding me? Will you help me? Charlotte could not speak. With a thirst for accusations, I asked. Did you really want to covet me too? Respect the suffering of others with fun. That's how it is. Dietrich. Charlotte interrupted him sharply. Trying to calm down, she placed the palm on his cheek. With a soft smile that helped calm her down, Charlotte said, I just want you to not die without getting hurt. There was fear in Dietrich's eyes, giving way to concern for Charlotte. Vona said, I'll apply the paint. Dietrich was delighted to see Charlotte's peace. Beneath his healthy purple eyes, you could see the bags of lack of sleep. Dietrich denounced and said, All good. Charlotte turned her face away. You helped me. Charlotte took his hand and handed it over. Dietrich is convinced. I said that I didn't waste. Interrupting Yogo, do not harm yourself. Charlotte's face revealed a bright smile. She bowed her head and said gently, This is a gift. Dietrich, sitting on a squat and lying down, marveled at the grinning Charlotte. He didn't know anything about it at that moment. Holding the dance of Likev in his hands, he yakpid. Diakyu! You seem fine, so I'll go and get some food myself. After Dietrich's wide podak, having given up the pretext, rushing to the exit without looking back, closing the doors with a quiet knock. Find a solution. Charlotte relaxed and spoke to herself. Evil the monster, calm Dietrich. From exhaustion, Charlotte could have guessed it, as Rapto's light flashed. A systemic window appeared before her. Among all the souls of Dietrich, the 99th achieved unprecedented achievements. I wish you no harm for another 98 souls. There's no need for me to fix it. Charlotte lay there staring at the system and thinking. Once there were 98 people. During the entire hour, didn't you pass a busy time? Charlotte's chamber punished the great master, Dietrich, for the renewal of justice. Do you accept the task? Charlotte accepts the new system, thinking about her inheritance. I can't get another fine. Charlotte accepted the knowledge of the system. As Rapto noted, it was shocking. Systemically, everything appeared in her eyes. Like a broken spring, Charlotte suddenly gave in, overwhelmed with shock. The data in the system was unreasonable. What is it? Charlotte's garden. Chamber of the Great Mare. Punish Dietrich. Take him to Aculos. He is the most terrible monster. Charlotte from Greece often punished Dietrich. A variety of rooms range from basic pastes to various monsters and spirits. Alavona brought him to the most important things, such as Achelos' room, on which the curse screamed of hallucinations. Achelos has been living in the abyss for a long time, having experienced nothing for a long time, and now he is dying of hunger. In the story of Dietrich, he was cursed by that room. He was guilty of forever wandering in endless nightmares with fears. System window. Charlotte rests. Don't you feel responsible? Vaughn is in thought. What kind of reliability is there? Raptum Charlotte was eagerly surprised at the system window and noted that she was feeling sick. The system was burning like a red light. Numu Bulo has it written. For failure of the task, Charlotte resting place. Having read more about what was written in the system, Charlotte froze, her eyes, widening with fear, staring at the system screen. What was written in the system hit Charlotte like a blow from a flashlight. The Beulah was ruined, let's write. What? What does this mean? The system continued warning light was displayed. For failure of the task, Charlotte will be locked in the Jock's room. Nietzsche. The corridor is paved. Dumki. I've been here for a few days now. It was impossible to communicate with the outside world for the entire hour. Dietrich touched the rags with a hand soaked in varnish and was careful how they tightened without causing the scars. Staring at the window, Dietrich hid on the windowsill, desperately trying to find a way out of the full masonry. Dietrich marveled at the window with his sum. We have a wonderful mark on our necks. In my thoughts. So soon, you better come for the mark of the stench. Dietrich began to guess the unpleasant hours when he was alive at the temple. The priest asked, Dietrich, what is the role of children in the temple? Having bowed the head of the widows. Children are taken to the temple to conform to the will of God. Our only obligation is to dedicate our lives to the temple. The priest stood up, saying by the sleeves, That means you haven't lost your mind. I was thinking about how to make money with you. Those who start having seizures at the sight of blood. Having thrown the sheet to Dietrich, he continued, Allah, the Archduke needed a face. If you still have the ability to prove your worth, then serve him with fidelity. And don't think about the leak. She was very angry. Dietrich went straight to the Archduke. The words of the priest are lingering in my head. I'll let you know that we're going to join. Viebu. After getting married, Dietrich went to his destination, and I really don't want to get into an angry fight with my neighbor. 3 times he opened the door and marked the room in front of him. Please, for opening the door without permission. I want to fight. How did this happen? The room was trimming the candle for lightning. With a sly laugh, you asked him to come in. Come on in. Dietrich was engaged in the recollections of the past, like Raptovo. Dietrich? Charlotte said cheerfully. Wine of congratulations. When did you come? I washed my shirt. Are you okay? Charlotte said calmly. So, everything is fine with me, Dietrich asked with some novum. So, have you gained weight and want to become important? Yes, and everything in a day or two. Raptovo Dietrich guessed more importantly. What could explain to the Swede the renewal of the deterioration in such a short term? Dietrich bent down in shock, so as to be closer to Charlotte. Just think in you! Vaughn continued to stand calmly. Having marveled at this, having denounced him, he said, Color of eyes. Charlotte was very shocked by Dietrich's words. What? In Dietrich's thoughts, he merged the image of Charlotte with a sly laugh. I sing that the stench of red gold came from the cob. Dietrich, after all, did not mention the color of his eyes, but simply confirmed them. Nothing. What did you want to tell me? Charlotte looked at Dietrich and began to think. Let me tell you, don't raise any doubts in anyone. After thinking for a moment, she looked at him and agreed. I'm hungry. Could you bring me something to eat? Dietrich does not confirm anything. Charlotte nodded in silence. In my thoughts. Why bother? It was too wonderful. Dietrich waited for the vicinati of the bastard. Good. In which room? Charlotte was surprised that he had done well. Charlotte did not understand her choice. Why? Dietrich marveled at her and asked, "What's on the right?" "You have a wonderful face." Charlotte felt sad. Vaughn was ahead of him. "There is a strong monster in the room with him. It's been a long time coming." Dietrich clasped his sword with his hand. "It's important for you to control him, so are you asking for help?" Vaughn was shocked. "Yes, that's it." A thoughtful look accompanying Dietrich. Rushing to the kitchen, I realized what was waiting there. Okay, check. Charlotte couldn't just let Dietrich go to his death. Vaughn decided to stop Yogo and ask. Vaughn asked, "Why?" Decisive, Dietrich was already as close to the door as he felt the voice and began to listen. "Hello," Dietrich turned around and asked. "What?" Charlotte was tormented by her conscience. "You hate me, so why are you still dying?" "We worry about Charlotte and Vidpov. To what you feel unkind to yourself." Vaughn was really shocked by his words. Dietrich clenched his sword with both hands, looking down. Charlotte thought, "Fine, what pities me? Totally stupid?" Having said everything and respected the needs, Dietrich turned around and said to the rest, "Well, I'll go now." Dietrich approached the exit from the room, as Charlotte immediately grabbed him by the sleeve of his shirt, with words. "Check it," Charlotte muttered and said. "It's very dark there. Better take a candle with you. Come in Oboviaskovo with a light on fire." It was dark in the room, only the candle lit it. Dietrich thought, "What's wrong here?" without even letting it show. In the quiet room, not having heard the desired word, Dietrich simply took the candle from his hands that Charlotte had given to him. Dietrich, taking the candle, smashed it to the door. Charlotte looked at him thoughtfully. "I wish I could help you. For Akyulos, a small ruin will be torment. If he wants 3 pieces of light, Dietrich will not get hurt." Dietrich, holding the door handle to open them. Charlotte's thoughts. "You are not harmed if you go with a candle." Dietrich, enter the room with your hand on your sword in readiness. Charlotte's thoughts. Everything will be fine with him now. When Dietrich reached the room, he found a table that had lost a burning candle, and then tore it down to look around the room. From Dietrich's distant table, half a candle went out, gradually filling the darkened room into an impenetrable darkness. Dietrich followed the room, searching for the hedgehog. He held the sword in his hand to be ready to fight and think. "I've been Zaishoff for a long time now." He paused and looked carefully around the room, but knew nothing. Here there was no more pressure on the hedgehog than anything else. Dietrich realized that he had been fooled and decided to leave the room. "I'm going back." This woman circled her finger around me. Diet of Storms left the room when dark clots of darkness began to descend on him from behind his back. Dark clots of darkness, mute living essences, descended on Dietrich. Cold Pet appeared in his guise. Dietrich felt amazing. Everything began to crumble before Ochima. What? The miracle appeared so raptly. Everything flowed before the Ochima, like a rapture of words. Litzar? Dietrich turned around and noted that it was even more wonderful. I was even more shocked. Dietrich turned around, and in front of him stood a great number of secret articles. It seems like we recognized them. These are the people. Standing in the middle of the fussy crowd was a little boy from Dark Eyes. Vin asked, "What if our brother turns around?" Behind him stood a frail woman with tears in her eyes, calling out, "My son," without turning around. "Why are you alive?" The priest was especially visible. "Hit it! What kind of guy can't you do?" "It's necessary because I'll kill them." "Quiet, whomever you want to steal." Secret posts, hid in the shadows, guarded Dietrich with his money and wrath. They looked piercing. Dietrich's eyes widened in horror. Stepping up without wasting any money. Aji couldn't believe his eyes. The hand that was carefully gripping the sword trembled in fear. Dietrich could not believe his eyes. "No, we can't be true." Unable to overcome his fear, Dietrich waved his sword, throwing him into the shadows. The clang of the sword spread throughout the room. Buried by the fright, Dietrich fell on his knees, closing his ears, and ranted, "Finish it, bless you, finish it!" Near the dark room, the red eyes of the monster glowed brightly, hoping to lead its victim into deception. A monster resembling a scorpion was guarding the stele. Tsebuv Akyulos, having caused Oman. Abai beat Dietrich's Pantalik. Having become more hopeless, Dietrich became desperate and could not earn anything. Oculos plans to attack Yogo. It turned out that there was no need for advances in marriage. An hour before the death of the main character, Dietrich. 9 Huilan 59 seconds. Dietrich suffered from hallucinations. The priest stood screaming until the end. Hit me, no matter what kid you hit, I'll wake you up. There is nothing for children to do by covering their ears, so as not to smell what the smell seems good. Finish it. I hope I finish it. System window. 6 minutes 27 seconds until death. Akulos hid in the darkness to take Dietrich's life. System window. 4 hours 43 seconds until death. Charlotte ran quickly along the corridor to grab Dietrich. System window. 2 hours 17 seconds until death. Oculos swung his ghosty tail to kill Dietrich. A few weeks before Dietrich's death, Charlotte, having opened the door of the room, was able to turn him in. Light has impoverished Oculos. After the death of the monster, Charlotte rushed to Dietrich, who, suffering from hallucination, continued to receive blessings for help. Charlotte tried to drink Dietrich's drink with her lips, sipping. Well, come on, Vipe! But nothing came of it. System window. 10 seconds until death. Everything was melting before Dietrich's eyes. Charlotte kept trying to drink his lips. In words, Axis, forge! Vaughn continued to give his face for more than an hour, so that his blood was lost. In order to snatch him away from death, Charlotte stuck her finger in his mouth to open him up and began to forcefully squeeze his lips. Forcefully pouring in her lips, Charlotte trimmed her mouth open. The first axis, unconvinced, appeared closer to the mind in Dietrich's eyes. System window. Dietrich appears as a debuff. Charlotte, relieved, fell into the pretext of the words. It came out of me. Having come to his senses, Dietrich rushed at Charlotte, throwing her onto the frame, and she saw how it had pierced her body. Dietrich pressed Charlotte with his hands until the podloga. His appearance did not express emotions. Vaughn was overwhelmed with thoughts. I call you the same? Dietrich grabbed her shoulders heavily. Vaughn came out and said, More than Dietrich. Vin Vidpuff. Before that, I'll kill you. I hope you finish it after rinsing the wine. The look was blurred, and there were big bears under the eyes. We looked even more tired, guessing moments that were remembered before this. Charlotte calmly drank her tea, thinking, I turned him into a monster, thinking that everything will be fine. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Dietrich fell under a debuff. After reading it, she choked on her tea. Turn around at this moment. Charlotte lay there looking at him and thinking, I came running, having finished drinking, to get an antidote. Alavin is already devout. Vona, dissatisfied with his behavior, hit him in the hand with her fist. Dietrich, get away from me! Before Charlotte's blow, Dietrich came to you. Having said that, you will be surprised by asking, What are you doing here? Charlotte pointed pointedly at his hands. You attacked me. Once you come to you, will you marry me? Are you rushing around unseen? Dietary visits and supplies? How did you know that I don't study? Vaughn confirmed. Our eyes did not sharpen. Dietrich, ruining himself, turned his head away from Charlotte, lost in thought about everything that had happened up to that moment. Marveling at Dietrich, Charlotte thought it was very unpleasant, that she was greatly disqualified and shocked. In these thoughts, system window, Bourgeville 1%. Why did this start? Dietrich sat with a distorted face, even though he could not do anything. In the game of Dietrich, with the appearance of Godville, he begins to fall apart morally. The greater the display, the greater the risk of ruining your kindness. Having completely lost his mind, Dietrich forgets the purpose for which he is responsible for leaving the motherland. Maytok burns his soul, and that's the end. Charlotte was captured by Yogo's camp. Bourgeville showed up earlier. Is Dietrich really out of his depth? It doesn't suit me at all. I thought about it with horror. I began to calm him down. Don't boast, just turn around. Dietrich was filled with dark thoughts and hope. Even if I turn around, in the future, I will have to experience it again. System window. Dietrich fell into despair. Until then, until we calm down, God will continue to grow. Vona was shocked. Charlotte began to calm her down. Dietrich, just calm down. Only you will know the room of truth. Dietrich bowed his head and asked, What does this chamber of truth dream about? How can you trust me? Charlotte remained calm. Are you saying that you don't trust me now? Yakbi, if you listened to me, there would be no problems. Dietrich began to calm his family down little by little. His face softened, and he said the reason. The candle interfered with trimming the sword. After he had uttered these words, Dietrich became thoughtful and realized that there was injustice here. Beaujeville is beginning to grow again, falling into utterance after saying, V knew everything. There is a similar pasta in the room. Charlotte, having grown up in the Swedish growth of Godville, Dietrich. Bula's not happy. Let's go crazy, God's God is growing fast. Charlotte approached Dietrich, trying to calm him down. Come to Tommy! Kazav, do you want to go out and steal someone? Gently placing her hand on Dietrich's face, she tried to bring him to you. It's all the same to you. What will happen to them? Dietrich grabbed her hand and said, I can't understand you. They locked me out here and asked me to think about those who are calling. Godville is growing. Dietrich squeezed her hand and said, Are you trying to roll over and not let me go? You enjoy suffering. You are a vile human being who should bring you joy, Dietrich said. After these words, Charlotte glanced at Dietrich, having thought about what would be better than the truth, so as not to make a mistake in the situation. Charlotte said, Everything is so, as you said. Hello to Dietrich. Charlotte said, There are a lot of disgusting people in this world. The people from them don't suspect anything about it. So don't die here. Charlotte went to bed and screamed, Instead of knowing here for nothing, go out, kill such people and die there. In the words of Charlotte, we have come to you. There will be destruction in this matter. Dietrich asked, So you don't feel the same way? Surprised by the promotion, Dietrich's appearance was dripping with cold sweat. 3 times his hand, he continued. They just said that other people didn't feel this and don't know such feelings. Charlotte felt alarmed. I am Dietrich. They are interrupting. Then try it yourself, Bona thought. What? System window. Dietrich turned to leave. Beaujeville is currently 13%. God's buds have stopped growing. Dietrich's denunciation changed dramatically, resulting in great anger. If I choose this greedy little guy, I will shut you down the same way you shut me up. Dietrich threatened Charlotte, squeezing her hand. Vaughn was really shocked. A new day has begun. The sun was shining brightly in the yard. White glooms flowed across the bright blue sky. Dietrich aired the room out of the persistent smell of blood. The snow-white curtains swayed in the wind that came out of the window. The number of corpses of monsters is great. Dietrich sat and thought. I've been locked up here for a few days now. There is no end to monsters. He wanted to wipe his face with the blood of monsters, even though it was unpleasant to look at and smell. After wiping the stain, he looked at his hand. She was covered in the blood of monsters. You felt uncomfortable seeing him. Dietrich marveled at his bloody hand with his bag. There is no way I can smell and see blood. He began to think about life in the temple. Other children of the temple were in different ways worried about this new age, who was merely a servant. The water wafting on the new bucket filled the mocking stench with water. Without thinking, what is there? Why are you standing below, Dietrich? He just stood there, listening to everything that the stink said. This brat is a damn it to the priest who sheltered him. And through whom does he live here, walk calmly around the temple, and clean up the mess here? Determined through the priest. With a sly laugh, he got by. You're telling the truth. The person who cannot wield the sword in his hands cannot bear it. Such a departure is caused by simply dying on the battlefield and not living peacefully here, walking around the temple. Listening to them, they rushed into thoughts. Even if I wanted to be a celebrant, the sword could not be in my hands. More precisely, I couldn't drive it in. Perishing with fear, I felt the voices that blessed him. I hope you have mercy on your children. I really bless my son. There is a loud cry every now and then. If I wield the sword. Kill them! Lots of demons! Hearing this, he was stuck in a swamp. He became very tired from all the quiet ridicule and hallucinations that he showed himself when he picked up a sword. The girl who seemed to me like a human being. Having guessed the moment, Charlotte reached out to the valley to calm him down. Axis extended her hand to help. AJ complimented me on my behalf, wanting me not to die and not to be harmed. What did I say to her? Guess what he said? If I go out, I'll lock you in and won't let you out. In view of the important thoughts of Dietrich, they lie down and hold their heads. It looks like I was truly out of my mind for saying that. Charlotte came to see him. Entering the room, she asked calmly, Dietrich, are you here? Having learned that she was on her way, she began to come closer to drink. Are you sleeping? You don't confirm anything. If you sleep, I'll come another time. Without being dissatisfied with the results, don't come before me. Stivovano, she asked, why haven't you slept? Why don't you come? No shock. Don't you really know? If I hurt you. Wanting to get married, I became amazing. Having tried this mat for a long time. I don't think I can show my good side, she said thoughtfully. You said yesterday that you would take revenge on me. Why don't you show the good side? She tried to justify herself, but Charlotte missed it. It's okay, I'll understand. Before speaking, turn your back to me. Hearingly turning to her, he asked, what else? Vaughn gently placed her palm on your face and said, let's marvel. You got hurt badly. Let me fork you, Dietrich asked with some navum. Well, do you want to make money with me? Dietrich became confused and said that there was no need to treat him with kindness. Vona blocked the Yuma. You want to quickly see and exit. Well, I said that I don't want to. Charlotte was angry and thought that he looked like a stray cat who wouldn't let himself be petted. To move him, she hung out loudly and loudly. I'm not going out! Dietrich was angry at what she shouted. Dietrich turned around and refed. What did you say? I say I won't go until I give you my love. Vaughn repeated boldly. Will you apply your makeup and go straight away? Great! She happily answered. Take care of her, then work whatever you want. Charlotte gently smeared her lips onto the wounded Dietrich, very sweetly, so as not to miss anything. You were just on guard, Vin asked, embarrassed. Did you really come to force me? Vaughn confirmed. Svichino, I thought I was injured. Any thoughts? In fact, there is one more reason why I came to you. System window. Newly important, now you can enchant the people you need. I started to feel sad because I was doing this. I also sent Dietrich to Akulos and took over the city. But it wasn't explained, so I don't know what the essence of this stupidity is. Turning to reality. How much am I to blame for sitting like this? Maybe you'll get some roses. Are you sure you want to force me? There is also a wound on the body. The surging faces of you said, there I'll get into trouble myself. He won't need any further help. Nailing until the new Vypadkovo Vikaristas Dibnist. It won't matter if you work for it yourself. Let me help you. Dietrich Buv's Divovanya. Just then, everything became rosy. The lips began to bloom, and Charlotte began to grow brighter. Charlotte was constantly shaking under her hand. If I encountered pressure and headache, it happened like this. The system has completely overdone. Do you want a Vicaristat enchantment? Dietrich began to marvel at himself. Vona called out to Yogo. Everything around New Year was in soft russet tones. The flowers were circling around Charlotte. But in New Year, it looked different. Charlotte is shocked. What? How do you figure it out? It was really hard to know. It looks like his look has changed. I feel unacceptable. Did you earn anything? System window. The enchantment failed. Until the last try, 59 violins, so that Dietrich would not be suspicious. Charlotte decided to give him joy. Go to the entrance area today. Having given her piece, Charlotte went to her right. Godville appeared earlier than I thought. I need to quickly know something. Charlotte arrived at her place of confession and began to open the doors of the room fully to enter. When she opened the door, she noticed a small, fluffy creature that immediately ran towards her. Tseboom is a little dark-haired dog with black eyes. The joy of Vin for bending Charlotte into his arms. He's going to be even nicer. Charlotte greeted him. Hello, little one. The dog, out of love, made sweet sounds for her to pet him. In this small and sweet world, the creation gave Dietrich stability and slowed down the growth of Godville. This time, we can also help. The dog began to grizzly and brushed Charlotte's hair. Vona gently cooked the Yago. No, you can't grease your hair. She was playing with the dog when she heard a wonderful sound. It turned out that there was no need to make arrangements for her. Dietrich came into the doll's room. Secret Story 1 at the top is unlocked. This information appears at the beginning of the scene. Charlotte laughed happily at that. Dietrich reached the entrance room without delay. That's good. Joy came from Charlotte's face when she remembered the details of that scene. Be careful, it will be important. The dog sensed that her mood had changed. He began to worry about Charlotte, and even the hands that were holding him began to unclench. Their hands completely unclenched, and the dog fell into the trap. Charlotte hurried to go to Dietrich for help. Charlotte quickly ran through the corridors, leaving the little fluffy little guy alone. The dog was feeling really crazy. Dietrich calmly finished the room in the doll's room, as if they had already arrived in the room. Vin asked, Vi, what are you doing here? Charlotte came into the room. There stood the police with teddy bears. Is it really that far? The system said with a sly chuckle. I wondered if you would die before you reached this room. Події, що відбувалися в цей момент. Dietrich came to the entrance part of the map, as Charlotte pleased you. Having entered the middle of the building, everyone was surprised, and noticed that there were a lot of police here with their own teddy bears. Obsessively looking at everything in the room, he suddenly knocked his foot on the bottom of the table as he stood in front of him. Turning around to take care of what he bumped into, he noticed a small table on which lay a piece of paper. You might want to wonder what kind of leaf this is. Maybe it's more important that you can tell me a little about this paper. Once you start reading, you realize that this is a fragment from the handicraft of the Lord's handicraft, in whom her childhood was revealed. Written in the Shodenik, Rospovedal, in front of the person of the deceased. In the rich ice of the great majesty, all speeches were expensive and valuable. But more than any other thing, she loved the teddy bear that the late mistress gave her. Lady never deprived her of this toy, even if she was eating, or if she needed to start, or if she was going to sleep. Today, I noted that the lady was talking to the bear. It seems that you are so timid because you can't let go of your mother. For the rest of the ice, it looked different. It seemed to her that the lady was struggling with deep self-esteem. The apartments were even worse than the little lady's. Vona was really worried about her and wanted a better life for her. Poor and unhappy lady. Dietrich calmly read the little lady's book, as if he realized that he had suddenly appeared in the room. Dietrich quickly turned around to see who was there. What? There was no one in this room until that moment. And then everything turned around until the moment when Charlotte arrived in the doll's room before Dietrich. Marvel at her and ask, when did you go into the room? Charlotte didn't suggest anything to you, she was just standing there. Surprised, I noticed that she had red eyes. Finally, you have come here, hurry up! There's an ominous atmosphere here. Charlotte barely stood up, laughing slyly. Dietrich re-edited ye. Can you smell me? Why are you standing? Raptum, she spoke to Dietrich in a fluent manner. Is it really that far? The sly laugh never left her face. Dietary words of life. You want to be wary, even if there are red eyes in her. It may be that something is not good. Heading to the police with the teddy bears, she said. I wondered if you would die before you reached this room. Dietrich overfed. What did you just say? Vaughn confirmed. It looks like I greatly underestimated you since you got all the way here. Take the bear in your arms. Hello, Dietrich. This room will not be similar to the other rooms you passed before. Taking the teddy bear, she pressed it close to her, and with a sly laugh looked at Dietrich, straining to see what would happen next. How can you live in this situation? Suddenly, the whole room caught fire. Dietrich quickly rushed to Charlotte. Alas, a strong fire stirred him, burning sharply in front of him, not allowing him to go far to Charlotte. Vin thought for a moment. The stars in the room suddenly began to sound like fire. Just cover your mouth so as not to run into the fire. Dietrich rushed into the fire, like a teddy bear attacking him. In the new rage there are clicks. Dietrich Swede pulled out his sword from the fur to fight off the bear monster's rapt attack. I haven't experienced anything like this. He cut open the bear and threw him into the fire, thinking, I really can't be like a teddy bear becoming a monster. Dietrich was disappointed with Charlotte, whose trust before her became less. She said, I wish I could see. Were those words lies? Vin looked at Charlotte. She stood smiling slyly and marveled at the mountain. Why should one marvel? The fire was getting closer and closer to Dietrich. Having looked at what she was so surprised at, she chuckled slyly. Behind him, terrible monsters of teddy bears were approaching, talking to him. Play with us! Hey, come play with us! What? Dietrich Bouv's Divovania. The signs could have come from many of the bear monsters that climbed out of the caverns. The teddy bears attacked Dietrich. There were difficulties that he could not cope with. The stench overwhelmed my body. Now the time has come to collapse independently. The system transfers control to the main heroine, and now it is possible to collapse on its own. Charlotte's eyes became dark again. Vaughn was excited about transferring control over her body back. Znovu turned around. It is not at all acceptable to transfer control over Charlotte's body. Vona looked around at herself. Having chanted, "I'll give myself some Karuya," Charlotte wanted to see what she was doing with Dietrich. At this point, Dietrich had already started to fight with the bears. "Looks like we'll finish soon. Isn't it hotter than Yumu in the fire?" Charlotte turned around and calmly looked at the fire that had left her and rushed deep into her thoughts. Vona respectfully marveled at the Vogon. He was shining in her dark eyes. Vona thought, "Will it hurt me more in the fire?" Vona thought about it for a long time. "Try it, why not?" Charlotte got bold and stuck her hand all the way to the fire. Noticing this, Dietrich shouted to her, "Why are you bothering?" Charlotte cackled at his scream and took his hand away. "Naked at me. Prishovshi has nourished it within herself." "What?" They scream loudly. "Hey, why are you out of the woods? Are you going to put your hand in the fire? Why are you whining? How kind you are." Thinking the same way. "However, I am an NPC, so I don't feel anything, whatever I want." Dietrich grabbed the sword, became angry with his actions. Did they just say that they would put a man's hand in the fire? Those approaching her. "Don't collapse. Lose yourself in your place. I still need to be quenched, as everything has come to an end. In my thoughts. Check it out." She wondered what might happen after Dietrich's victory with the teddy bears, and looked at the mountain. Since everything was going according to plan, then the beam and the stele fell on Dietrich in May. There is no wrath before her. Carefully. Charlotte was ahead of Yogo. He turned around to see what was there. But it was suddenly impossible to enter. Charlotte quickly rushed to Dietrich to steal him. But she didn't know what kind of inheritance she would choose. "If I get sick, I won't be sick." Charlotte rushed at Dietrich to get him away from the falling debris. Systematic advance. You change the punishment given to Dietrich. The tribute will be transferred to Charlotte as a fine. Charlotte's painful cry threw Dietrich up to go away. He was thrown far and was not caught in the debris. Most of the people who came to you got up and left Charlotte showered with debris. After thinking, "What happened here?" Vinuvyi. "Charlotte!" But she didn't look up. He quickly rushed to clear the rubble in order to dig them out. Those who recovered the wreckage from it noted that it was still in evidence. Complacent in the drink. "Are you okay?" From time to time, she only knew how sick she was. "What? More sick? Why am I sick?" Talking to her, "You have a strong opic." Raptum all the while, I was feeling sick. The first time I heard such a strong pain here for so many hours, she didn't stop screaming. Losing her consciousness, she couldn't think about anything besides the pain. "Why am I so sick? This has never happened before." Dietrich realized that the situation was deteriorating and decided to search for someone to quickly help her. Charlotte wondered where he was going. Vona stretched her hand to Zupaniti Yogo. "No, don't go. Don't leave me alone." Her hands were shaking in unbearable pain, but she continued to twist them in order to stop him. "Don't go, Dietrich." His hand began to sink completely, and before his eyes, everything became dark. "To be honest, I think I'm losing my temper." Charlotte has lost her knowledge. At this moment, Dietrich turns around, knowing the faces and spreading their smiles. Feeling relieved, Charlotte began to come freely to you, opening her dark eyes. Having opened her eyes completely, she waved Dietrich in front of her with such joy. Vin asked, "Have you arrived yet?" When Dietrich continued to apply the paint on his hand, he noticed a sharp pain. "Be patient for just 3 more, and everything will be fine." Raptum Charlotte thought about it. Before speaking, "What happened?" "I tried to steal Dietrich, but why am I injured?" Having guessed the events that had come up to this point, she looked up and noticed that she was systematically aware of the advances. When the move was made, Dietrich was injured. Skoda is transferred to Charlotte's resting place due to a fine. Vaughn marveled at the system. "Why did I get hurt? Couldn't you say something about this earlier?" "I almost died." Dietrich started rapping. "I hope you won't be so timid again." Vona was shocked. "What? Wiggle, Raptum, you would die?" Having realized the offense, She turned her gaze away. I also didn't think it would happen like this. Are you listening to what I'm telling you? Gerast. In the future, I won't be so timid. It hurt even more. Dietrich looked at her, thinking about himself, having dared to ask. I want to feed something into you. Vona was shocked. In me? And what do you want to ask? Having looked at her, she was exposed. Your eyes. When I first arrived, the stench of the bright blue color was noticeable. And at that moment, the stench became a bright red color. Behind them, you see a human figure, not similar to your original self. Your demeanor changes from always calm to a sly smile, whatever you do at any moment. When this happens, there comes a moment of insecurity. Wonderful speeches are heard as the room starts to light up. Isn't it true that you are afraid of the color of your eyes? Having asked Dietrich about his guesses and notes, is the color of my eyes changing? Every time, if the system treats my body? Vaughn was very happy. Just because she wanted to know, she guessed for a fine. No. As far as I know, I will receive an unknown fine this time. Turning her gaze towards him, she said warily. Viebach. But I myself don't know the type of infection on this diet. Yak axis. Dietrich became embarrassed because he could not reject the confession. Ale resume, maybe I just can't tell. Charlotte just sat there holding her hand, having been injured earlier. Dietrich rose from the excuses that came before her. He took his shirt and threw it over Charlotte to cover her, even from the burnt debris that fell on her. Vaughn asked with joy, In what on the right? He turned his gaze and said, Your coat is torn, so please wear a shirt. Charlotte was pleased that he was talking about her. Vona pulled on her shirt and yipped. I love you. The light began to shine. Powder appeared in front of Dietrich from the Vaikanaya vestige. The stench was very strong. Dietrich greeted the appearance of the powder and reached out with his hand to pick it up. The powder shone brightly. Having danced with powder, she was delighted. Dietrich too. And she mumbled sharply on the neck of the Phyllin. As soon as the atmosphere around her changed, the system took control. I live with the knowledge of fresh powder. Dietrich looked at her in amazement. Your eyes have become red again. When you take the powder and create a fragment, you can climb onto the step on top of the mat. I thought that if you don't find anything, you'll just die. Vin bovs divavani. Dietrich rose from her words. Squeezing the powder in your hands and squeezing it. Finish it. You say it again. Why are you so angry with me? She was just amazed at how pitiful he thought he was, and she wanted to destroy his good image. Show me what you're doing, Dietrich. With a sly chuckle, Vaughn continued to marvel at his new reaction. Dietrich was deep in thought. How can people make the table different when changing the color of their eyes? You don't understand it. I really don't understand. You, as Rapto speaks similarly, and your eyes. You seem to be less than greedy, then you help. If the system went out of control, the appearance changed to summary. Vaughn marveled at Dietrich with her bag. Dietrich, you don't need to be more understanding. He thought deeply about these words and was ready to speak. You have helped me, and you have suffered through me. Having said it boldly, so I'll try to trust you, she asked in awe. What did I tell you here? Vien vipoviv. If you don't, I would have been more offended. Unless something like this happens next time, I can't say anything to you. Vaughn was worried about his words. I thought the same. I can trust the girl with the sparkling eyes, even if she swore about me before. Vaughn with bright blue eyes and Vaughn with red eyes are two completely different people who have different characters and lives. Actually, I guessed correctly. For an hour, Charlotte stood there, thinking over the words that he had said to her. Having regained her composure, she said, Good for you, for your help. He was pleasantly surprised by the rapt's water. His expression having changed, a gentle chuckle appeared with some wonder at Charlotte. I can trust this girl. It's time for the bell to ring. In the temple, the priest buried Dietrich's friends. Damn it, what the hell? Temple, Priest Gilbert's office. Nevdiakni, we gave you shelter. How do you only dare to flow into the future? They rushed into the office on the orders of the priest. Two priests asked the temple. To the priest, did you hoot us? Vin said dissatisfiedly. Dietrich is missing. The stench was shocking, even as if it could flow away like a rapture from someone who had endured all the misery. Priest Gilbert pointed and shouted as he left. Immediately send anyone to look for that Bavdur. The priests of the temple went to the priest's orders to search for Dietrich. The mark does not gel, so watch carefully. For the coming day, early. Charlotte slept peacefully on a snow-white bed, resting on the days of the past. The time has come to go wild. Charlotte opened her sleepy eyes to see who had come before her. Charlotte quickly threw up the carpet to see who was crawling under it. The snow-white carpet fell into disrepair. Under the carpet, there was a fluffy dog who brought her an apple. Vaughn was shocked. Well, well, who is it? Posaka Yuchi from sleepiness has fed into the new one. What is it? Did you bring this new cat here yourself? The dog happily stripped. Baruchi apple, she said. Still, you understand the words. Let's see what you brought me. The dog respectfully marveled at Charlotte when he opened his mouth. She took the cat's apple and marked the teeth marks on it. Having looked back, she smiled brightly. It was so nice of you to bring her some morning food. The dog was worried about her. Charlotte was blown away by the turbo talk about her. Vaughn asked, Are you complimenting me? The dog looked at her hand worriedly. There you go, calm down. Everything's fine with me now, little tinkerer. How did you know that I got hurt? Charlotte took the crafty little one in her hands. Come get me, little dog. Fluffy buv more radium than Yogo took Yogo in her arms. Who are you? Vin barked happily. Kuwaf. Vaughn overfed it. Is your name Kuwaf? Vin waving. No. Q? Waf? Waf! He tried to explain to her, but nothing came of it. Vibok is a little trickster, but I can't understand what you want to tell me. The fluffy dog became embarrassed. It seems like he's in too much trouble that we can't talk. Why is this little guy so smart? In the game, I closely followed Dietrich, and approaching Charlotte with caution. But now everything is not as it was before. You know, you are guilty of hating me. Charlotte was talking to the dog when the system suddenly appeared. Karyuchi, first on top, is ready to step on the Jiru. An hour before the start of the game, 31 hours, 29 seconds. Vona was amazed at the system. Charlotte began to get ready to sing. You need to study with Dietrich. Will you come with me? The dog appears to be waving. Are you singing? Shall we sit down with the two of you later? The fluffy dog was as happy as he said, and looked like happiness. I'm afraid I won't hand over to Dietrich at this rate. Well, it's too bad for you to show up, so you don't have to make a fuss. Having dressed up, Charlotte goes to Dietrich, telling the dog about the remains. Well, little one, I'm off. Don't mess around here. The dog is heard to have straightened its head to check its direction. He is also intelligent and sweet, so much so that Dietrich deserves it. Charlotte left the room and went to Dietrich. The dog is left alone in this room and has no need to turn around. At the moment, Dietrich was in the library with a great variety of books. The stinks are beautifully arranged among the police. Dietrich respectfully read each dark red-colored book, quickly turning the pages of the snow-white pages of the book, just before Charlotte arrived, holding a basket in her hands. Beautiful yak in the first place. Yak Skoda, what is the face of the character? Dietrich read a book about the curse. Noticing that Charlotte had arrived, she closed the book and asked, Why are you timid this time? She said, handing him a basket of heads and threads. I just wanted to give you this basket of thread. Vin is delighted. Heads with threads and an apple? Like Yuma. I thought, you're hungry, so I took them. Heads with threads to sew up the clothes. Look, you don't want to walk around in torn clothes? Thinking for 3 minutes. No, you say. Dietrich, embarrassed, snatched his cat from his hands and said, I'll sew everything up myself. Charlotte thought he was confused, surprised to the point of drinking. Hello? Why did you bring so many heads and threads? Vaughn confirmed. Just in case. I asked about suspicions. Do you want to teach me Holka therapy? Turning his gaze away. It's not bad. What's so rich of them? Having realized that you cannot tell me, Vin asked Yi. Well, what's the point of everything you wanted to tell me? Charlotte didn't confirm anything. She just kept an eye on Dietrich and thought, Vipravajujimi, so cold. Suddenly, a piece of paper falls out of the book, which means the scene will soon unfold. The leaf landed right next to Dietrich's hand. The stench was stoked by the appearance of the scavenger. This is the sculptor of the Lady of the Great Mayette. System window. Dietrich received a share of the goods. Let's go back to the history of the part of the lady's treadmill. The history of this part began with the fact that the ice arose. All the people joked about it, all over the place. One of the gardeners knew her when she was digging the ground in a quiet place. That day, I gave her nothing. Lady, did you ever dig the earth there? You could have damaged your beautiful hands. The lady began to cry heavily. Crying, she pulled out a torn teddy bear from under her bed with words. Penny died. She was digging the ground anyway. How about charging a baby doll? Vaughn fed into her. Lady, what happened to Penny? Johann hit ye. He said that she is scary. I did not fit a yume. The little lady was very embarrassed. Incompetent lord, I have never been treated like this before. It has long seemed to me that young Hospodar Johann was cruel from childhood, and the lady was once again embarrassed. The chamber embraced the lady and said, Don't boast. Penny didn't die. Vaughn overfed it. Didn't she die? Of course she got hurt. With the words of Penny, who will be with you forever, the story of the swindler is over. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Grill the cob for 5 seconds. Having become systematically aware, Charlotte turned around sharply and let out a whoop. Dietrich! Vinzupanivyi. Check it! You sensed how dangerous things were approaching. Be careful. The atmosphere in the room is very wonderful. Grill the cob for 2 seconds. The system has an hour before the onset of 1 second. With the cob, the room began to become cowardly. The stench was alert. As the shaking began, books began to fall from the police. Dietrich was shocked when he asked, What do you expect from this room? Like a rapture of fraud under Dietrich's feet, she became soft and completely fell into it without being able to sink her feet. Dietrich tried hard not to waste his money, so as not to end up there. Already the legs were already half-loaded. From boy, the forgery is dragging me deeper and deeper. He tried to pull at least one leg with his hands, but everything was in vain. The monsters of teddy bears began to invade as if under false pretexts. The stench was all evil and torn to pieces. The bears were aimed at Dietrich, who was stuck in the underworld and was in danger of collapsing. The stench was getting closer. The teddy bears laughed evilly as they reached Dietrich. The stinks were all cut by a sword, or could collapse. Looking at the bears, you recognized them. These are the teddy bears that I cut up last time? How did the stinks show up here? As a result, the pretext has become like a swamp again. If this continues, then my whole body will be stuck in this mess. Raptum Dietrich guessed for Charlotte. It made him feel good to be with her at this moment. Chi hasn't changed. Exactly! There's a girl over there. Turning sharply around, he shook Charlotte, as if everything was in order. And nothing happened with her. Dietrich was very upset. Why is everyone so angry with you? Charlotte turned away with thoughts. I really don't know. The teddy bears had already reached Dietrich and began to attack him. Voni bite Yogo's legs and get nasty with Yogo. Dietrich was able to twist his leg out of the frame to throw the teddy bear, biting his leg. The bear flies far away. Dietrich showed respect to Charlotte. Hello, girl! The teddy bears continued to lick Dietrich, speaking, I'm sicker. Why is it so important to marvel at that? Charlotte respectfully marveled at one thing, not staring at him. Dietrich looked at those who were marveling. It was a basket with heads and threads. Vaughn marveled at the basket. Why? Tim, one of the teddy bears, climbed onto Dietrich's shoulder. I'm sicker. My eye is drooping. It hurts. Why bother? After thinking for a while, I guessed it. So what is the axle for? Didn't they bring the heads with threads? Having said throwing off the bear to himself, Charlotte was happy, even though Dietrich was at peace. Thank God that he was able to note those that I wanted to convey to everyone. Dietrich applied great strength to reach the cat. These are my thoughts. In truth, this game will end when Dietrich sews up all the toys. I understand, and now I just need to sew up their heads with thread. Dietrich took the cat with its heads and threads, throwing it at the teddy bears. It seems that our understanding is not correct. Having thrown it out, it began to weigh heavily in the underside, until it was completely loaded, so that it was not visible. Charlotte was very angry for him. Dietrich, I will help you right away. She just wanted to rush to the next one. It was as if a rapture had appeared beforehand. When the code crossed, Dietrich was injured. Skoda moves to Charlotte. Having guessed about the fine, she said no. Check it out. As soon as I help Dietrich, I will again experience that strong pain. Unable to help Dietrich in any way, Charlotte merely extended her hand in his direction with her words, "Number we can't booty. We can't do this unless we're with him." Out of shock, Charlotte began to pour everything in front of her eyes. Vona couldn't control her fear. Is it really going to end like this? Such a bad death? Vona continued with fear to marvel at the forgery of the load. Let's get ready. Steel's psyche is triggered. Charlotte began to be consumed by greedy thoughts. So will I be alone again? Will I be alone again? Isn't it possible to leave this terrible mess, crying and happy, so that they let me go? As soon as the pretext had been loaded, Dietrich began to collapse, and the Axis could come out at this moment. Dietrich began to win with his head in his hands. Charlotte was shocked and screamed, "Dietrich!" The flailing one fed. "You know your head. Do you know the threads?" Vin picked up the bear and said, "No, sorry to let you in. Stavovano." "What? All then, will you shut them up?" Having not come up with anything beautiful, Dietrich began to weave the threads from his robe, and I began to quickly sew up all the bears that climbed on him. I sewed up the eye of the first teddy bear. "The bear wants to escape from your hands, Aylmarno." Dietrich was evil to him, but he trimmed his appearance. "Sit straight." Watch how Dietrich sews up all the teddy bears. Charlotte was very upset. In truth, was it true? Can you sew up a teddy bear? I want the bear to escape from my hands, but I carefully sew it up. When Dietrich finished sewing the teddy bear, the atmosphere changed completely into one of happiness. No more pain? Having sensed this, the other bears began to rush to Dietrich so that their body parts could be sewn up as soon as possible. "Are you okay? Are you no longer sick now? Same for me, same for me. Correct, and so am I. I'm not getting better right now." Dietrich did not get around to sewing up one bear, as the other wanted him to be sewn up. "Check it. I'll sew everyone up. Just watch." Having realized that the bears had changed their behavior, Charlotte was delighted by this. "What's this?" Filled with thoughts. I'm happy that everything turned out so well. Looking at Dietrich, my soul felt lighter, and she laughed brightly. It's late afternoon. Dietrich sewed up the remaining teddy bear, and Charlotte sat there and kept watch. Ty Spritney. Having sewn everyone up so quickly, the stinks immediately attacked you all, and they were repairing the stitches. Continue to sew up the veins. For a servant in the temple, this is the basis. Charlotte was relieved and overfed. What, in the temple? He began to talk about his time when he was in the temple. I worked on it before, as I came to this whole place. I was stupid, so they brutalized me like a creature. No matter what, I am a slave. Sometimes people were worried about me. Later, I was kicked out of the church. Charlotte was happy and nourished. Why? You're nervous. What's wrong? Dietrich frowned and looked at the bears and mice, wondering how best to respond to the food problem. Letting the happy bear go. Because I also have defects. Charlotte didn't understand. With defects? The teddy bears beamed with joy and boasted one to another. "Now I'm not sick anymore. The hand is fine now," Charlotte asked. "Looks like you're done?" The forgery is also slowly catching up. It's true, now everything is true. Having rejoiced among themselves, the teddy bears decided to make a gift for Dietrichoff. Gladly they came to the new one. Having reached Dietrich, the happy bear extended his hand to Dietrich with words. "This is our gift to you." A gift from teddy bears for Dietrich was a piece of powder. He was very happy with this gift. Dietrich accepted the gift and asked, "Powder? We have suffered greatly from harm and destruction with our gift." Charlotte wondered for a moment, and then wondered. And the truth is, if everyone gets in the way, then the bears give powder. Is it different? You need 3 powders to finish the first piece on top. I'll take another one. Then I can climb up to the step on top. The problem is the remaining powder. Charlotte sighed gravely as she thought about the powder. The bears were preparing another gift for Dietrich, and so on. Take it, Vin asked. How about now? The veterinarian happily handed him a flyer with requests in the teddy bear cafe. Obovyaskovo come. Dietrich took a leaflet with requests from the bear cafe. Vin was delighted to seep into them. Bear cafe? The bears spoke happily. Come, Obovyaskovo. Dietrich looked at Charlotte and asked what to do. Why should you be surprised at me? After thinking about it, she said, waving her hand. Roby, whatever you want. Dietrich looked impressed. The teddy bears were terrified. As soon as you can respond to your request in your cafe, the stinks began to cry. Crying, they wondered for Charlotte, and with a glance asked for their help to cross Dietrich. Why should I be surprised at the stench on me? There's nothing wrong with helping them. Charlotte got up from her feet and said, It stinks to ask. Would you like to go once? Vin Vidpov. I have inquiries and need to finish them. Von Reconfigure. Do you only pay for what you need? And how can we live like this? Who knows? Perhaps you would like to take away the pennies, Vin suspiciously asked. Pennies? What do you want to earn again? Dietrich thought less and less. And we rise from the pretext of saying, Garazd, let's go to your cafe. The teddy bears were really happy when Dietrich was willing to sing with them in their own teddy bear cafe. The stinks shone like happiness. Will you go? Then follow us. The bears pulled Dietrich along with them. Charlotte marveled at the torn clothes. In your thoughts, marvel at it. Dietrich and you is a funny outfit. There was no longer a garment on his back. Only the sleeves hung down. Charlotte fussed at him. You need to try to find the shirt you want for him. Don't walk around like that. All right, all the clothes for the chambers are in the napkin. Charlotte found Dietrich in his bedroom. Don't go, sing. Charlotte hurried to catch up with Dietrich, who was led by teddy bears. I'll think about this food again. The bears brought Dietrich to their cafe. It was beautifully decorated with carved stitches and colorful bags. System window. We kindly invite you to the Medvediki Cafe. Their Sestrive teddy bear is dressed up in rest. Walking with the guests, you bowed with a laugh and began to take out a piece of paper on which cafe menu was written. Please, menu, take what you like. There were a lot of different items on the menu. Bear with the taste of Godville, cotton candy, and other positions are similar to quiet ones. After reading the Dietrich menu, I was very surprised. Divna menu? What's the point? Charlotte pointed to the menu and indicated Axis, Licorice Death, God's Will, and Cold by Duzist Beduzist. Even after Charlotte's hint, Dietrich could not understand what was going on here. It sounds absurd, but it's too late. All these objects will be beautiful to Dietrich. Von Bacula, Screedy Buffy. It seems that such propositions are not blocked by the system. Well, then it will be bad in the coming world. She disappeared and died. I enjoyed the taste of licorice death, shown on the menu. Also with the relish of cold goodness. Dietrich asked with distrust. Is it possible to eat? Surely cute plush cotton can harm you? Dietrich thought deeply about Charlotte's words. Having sat down and considered all the bitterness and possible remnants of wines, we have made decisions on how best to deal with this situation. I believe. What's so relish? Dietrich was unable to finish his sentence when the room began to panic. Charlotte was shocked. The teddy bears cackled and began to appear. Alien! Alien! Dietrich rose sharply from the table, sensing the unsafe situation. Charlotte asked with excitement, Who's a stranger? They tried to catch someone else and let them go. Alien! Meat! Wine from meat! Having caught the stranger, they tied him up with a skein and put him on a plate for serving herbs, covering him with a lid in front. The teddy bears hurried to give to the stranger, as a gift for Dietrich. Shob Vinyogoziv. Having opened the plate in front of Dietrich, the stinks said in a sung voice, Liudino! What a gift! Yo-yo! There was Charlotte's dog on the plate. Dietrich greeted, and Charlotte, recognizing him, rushed to grab the dog, screaming, Cunning little fellow! Charlotte began to unravel the crafty little one speaking. Guys, it's no big deal. The stench is reconverting. People love meat. We are hosting. Charlotte asked with a tearful look. Dietrich, will you eat this baby? Vine wiggles with his mouth open. He was quickly justified. What kind of lighthouse are you carrying? Why did you start burning? The bears became embarrassed. There is no human? It was impossible to visit him, Vaughn asked. Before the speech, Dietrich, didn't you wash your hands? So I will taste the licorice death. Request number 1. The bears were delighted. Your request has been accepted. Please take a look. When the situation calmed down more, they sat down on the pedestal. Dietrich asked with great vigor, Won't you make a deal? Vaughn sang loudly. The stench won't give me away. Why? Having asked with great urgency. I haven't paid them back yet. Borg? They wanted to feed Dietrich, but he was killed by the teddy bears who brought him his promise. The promise is ready. The bear crooked the lid of the plate. On the plate there was a ring decorated with yellow-colored confetti, which lay on the serviette. Charlotte hovered over him. Beautiful ring. Should I put it on you? Dietrich was embarrassed. Finish it. I'll hit myself. Ale in this cafe do not serve travi, Charlotte asked. What law dictates that cafes only serve herbs? Dietrich appeared on it, hanging the ring on his finger and speaking. Do not carry the lighthouse like forever. When Dietrich dressed his ring, he murmured the booming cry of the monster. The room began to become cowardly. The stench was noisy. System window. Kariuchi first noted on top that his river was stolen. Be on the lookout, were we so angry? Kariuchi first on top to cook on the lightly important behavior of the subjects. He threatens that he won't get away with it. The bears were in a panic. We are in great trouble. Once the system window has opened. That means he'll come soon. System window. Kariuchi is preparing to smear Dietrich. A majestic plush witch appeared immediately. The barefoot bear stamped her foot and began to lament. Dietrich at this moment began to approach Charlotte to take her away. Dietrich wowed and asked for her. Are you all right? Charlotte was heavily scolded, but she lost her temper. All is well with me. Hang on, I'll sort him out. Preparing for the attack, Dietrich took the sword by the handle and began to twist the sword from the fur. Charlotte sat holding the dog in her arms. Dietrich waved his sword and walked towards the barefoot teddy bears. Dietrich was angry and thought how best to start attacking the boss teddy bears, even a monster of great size. Charlotte honked at Dietrich and sharply tugged at the excess of the bag that was dragging behind her. Vin was very upset. Vona screamed, Let's go! Vaughn quickly pulled Dietrich's spare supplies with her before leaving the room. Charlotte and Dietrich quickly ran along the corridors to escape the base of the teddy bears who were following them. Boss teddy bears want to be large in size, but be even more snug and without standing up to them. Dietrich asked her, Check it out! Where are we? Charlotte chewed her hand and ran away. Just run after me. Trying to knock teddy bears out of your pantalic. Charlotte stormed out into the corridor. The bear stammered, angry that the stench is flowing out of the new wine, following them in order to quickly catch up with these two. Ale, turning into the very same one that smells like a corridor they don't know. Boss bears were very upset. Once we begin, we will carefully and respectfully examine all the corridors in order to identify any interference with their presence. At that hour, Charlotte and Dietrich turned into the corridor and hid in one of the rooms. The bear passed through the doors. Charlotte pressed Dietrich to the door, speaking quietly. Dietrich was greeted, and the dog was squeezed between them. When the door opened, Charlotte looked across the gap. Is it Pischoff yet? Nothing at all. Looks like it's not here. Dietrich was shocked when he asked, Why did we flow in? I could handle him. Vona glanced at Nyogo. Such discontent. It seemed to me that this was even more unsafe. Also in my thoughts. I'll forget everything. Dietrich fought with this monster. It's not yet time. This is the Great Lindbergh. You can easily die if you don't follow the course of the game. Samey I flowed through. If they had caught us, it would have ruined the progress of the game. And then the game would have ended immediately. Before speaking, Dietrich, how long will you walk around looking like this? You were happy with her nutrition, looking at yourself. You noticed that the clothes were torn. My dress, if it's torn like that? We're just in the wardrobe. Perhaps, will you take yourself? Dietrich put on a new coat, and Charlotte watched over him. A beautiful body is beautiful. It is pleasant to admire. It would be important to fight in such a way. Dietrich knew a suitable robe and began wearing it on himself. From the most famous speeches of the great Lord Lindbergh. In this place, the atmosphere of the next place changed. Dietrich straightened his sleeves and said, This coat looks even more expensive. Charlotte said, surprised. And to lick you, I said with doubts. And it still seems that this coat is very old. And perhaps I am more than a century old. In my thoughts. I'm not going out, so what do I know? I'm glad I confirmed it. Really? Dietrich, don't you know anything? What are you talking about? It was only after asking in Charlotte that the page from the Lady Maitka appeared. Glancing at the forgery, she said, I'm talking about this leaf that lies on the underside. He glanced at her at the same time. A piece of paper with a piece of the Lady of the Great Lindbergh's drawing, takes us into the continuing story about Penny the bear. Shrodenic lady. Today, the little lady cried the same way. The young ruler Johann first chose a teddy bear for her, Isuvav Yogo, although this toy didn't appeal to him at all. The lady was crying all the time, but soon stopped. Resolve appeared in her face. It was in my thoughts. I'll take the doll from Johannes. I followed her carefully, but what happened was what I was afraid of. The lady beat down the young ruler Johann. Vaughn screamed and tried to turn Penny around. The lady pulled him out, and the vase that stood on the handle broke, and blood flowed from the cuts on the hands of the young ruler. That's what you need, the little lady said to Johannes, not feeling sorry for her. But the problem started later. The new lady's mother, sensing the sound, quickly came running, and the little lady's white cheek turned red from the blow. The new mistress hit the little lady hard in the face, causing her blue cap to fly off her head. In the night of that day, the little lady was called out to the ruler. You felt their story and laughed at them from the heart. With a sly chuckle, he said, "This often happens between children." "Hello, little one. It's the people's responsibility to show respect. You must take responsibility for your work. That's why I'm taking your torn toy." Vin snatched the toy from his hands. I threw the teddy bear into the cave, right in front of my eyes. After a while, the little lady ran to grab Penny. Young Hospodar Johannes, who was the guru's, confronted her with the blatant accusations. Vaughn continued to stretch. Rich, given by the late mistress, quickly burned and became a waste. Gospodar only looked coldly at the crying lady. The lady, who cried for many hours, poured her eyes into the ruler with the dimmed eyes of the dead. "So, Dad, how is Johannes?" Once they had finished reading the story of this part of the story, they were startled when they felt a strange knock on the door. "Come out!" Dietrich covered Charlotte with his hand and began to draw his sword, eagerly preparing for the greatest steps. Charlotte calmly left Dietrich and went to open the door to know who had come before them. I once greeted her. "You know what's going on." Charlotte grabbed the door handle to open it. "Of course I know who is there. How to successfully flow in front of barefoot teddy bears." Charlotte kept the doors open to see who was there. "Then come, your kind little bears." 3 teddy bears stood outside the door, very afraid. The 3 came closer and looked at them. The bear held out a leaflet with its 3 paws. Our boss, having told him to give in to the people who flowed from him. Dietrich calmly took the leaflet from the medic's trembling paws. "In leaflets, call for a duel. We will fight for you. If I take away my power, I will take away your life." "I'll tell you." Charlotte and Dietrich moved to another room with a fireplace. Dietrich got ready before the boss arrived by lighting the fireplace. System window. An hour before the duel, 15 seconds. From the moment we entered the room, Dietrich threw wood into the fireplace. It seems that he thinks that it would be better to drive the monster into the hole by burning him in a stone. I was just as timid. In fact, the master shows us how to overcome the skin base, the skin on top. It takes all the money to overcome him. The problem is that when this method is used, a deadly paste is launched. The hatred of a dead doll. This paste is activated after the death of the boss due to fire. Through this, I recommended to Dietrich the taste of joy and death. The first has the effect of chilling, and the other allows you to deceive death. In Dietrich, there is a ring. That's why he's alive, after all. Charlotte looked at the crafty little guy and said, "You will go to a different place." Feeling it right away, I was startled. Then I started to give up. "What an unhearing little thing. You're so stubborn." Charlotte carried him out the door. Vaughn opened the door and said, "It's not safe. You won't be able to stay behind us, even if you do something bad." Putting Yogo on the ground. "Better check us out the door so that I don't boast about you. It will be safe here." Having said this, she turned to the room, closing the door, and the dog's doubtful look was visible, complimenting her. Charlotte turned towards Dietrich in the room and stood in a singing pose with her hands behind her back. "The Wona is ready to the cob." System window. An hour before the duel, 2 seconds. Sensing the presence of the boss, Dietrich stood up and said, "Pre-shoff." System window. An hour before the duel, 1 second. Boss of teddy bears rushed into the room, barging in under false pretenses. The teddy bears were very angry with Dietrich, whose eyes burned fiercely, and the tiles cracked from their ruins. Dietrich became wary and began to grab his sword from the ground. Vien respectfully guarded the ruins of the monster that was in front of him. The stench of resentment was ready to attack one-on-one, so as to understand who is the strongest among them, and we can overcome them. In front of her, the whole room was shaking. The carved furniture was breaking. The fabric was cracking. The chandelier was almost falling. Boss Teddy Bears threw Dietrich. Thrown by the monster, he tries to slow down with his hand. Don't try to stay out. The place where I cut the swords is immediately sewn up on its own. Just cutting him with a sword doesn't make any sense. The bear monster wanted to rapidly attack him, but Dietrich quickly reacted and scurried away. But after all, the monster barefoot managed to seal him with a shock blade, removing the wound from his appearance, and then he lost his life. Dietrich was carried away with a shock whine, but he was able to shake the jealousy who had slowed down behind the back of his sword. While the great teddy bear turned around in a sweeping attack, Dietrich decided to attack him at this moment. He quickly reached the barefoot bears and began to climb on him for a rapt attack from behind his back. Having climbed onto the teddy bear, Dietrich emerged from the new one to attack in the wind. Vin swung his sword strongly and inflicted a severe cut on the head, cutting through the main coat of the teddy bear. The bear fell into a trap. After a quick moment until the dawn of revival, Dietrich buried the bear's head and brought it out of sight. The body of the teddy bear continued to crumble without a head, until it was beaten from the Pandalic in their jokes. Having glanced at the bear's head, he gave the Vinces food. I've got a new head, but you can't make yourself grow up. Dietrich came up with a plan to deal with the body of the bear monster. He looked up and burned down. So now it's the same. You just need to get involved with your body. Vono just started to run towards Dietrich in order to turn his head. He began to respectfully aim his sword at the mountain in order to knock down the chandelier that hung on the stele. At that moment, if you pass under her, the bear's body immediately began to pass under the chandelier as Dietrich launched his sword straight into the chandelier. It began to fall onto the body. Having fallen on the body of the teddy bear, the fire quickly flared up, burning him. The body could not be reborn after this. Dietrich trimmed the bear's head and warned how to burn its body, so as to chant to himself that it will not rise again. For an hour, Charlotte calmly watched over him. Garneau burn. It would be easier to marry him, I thought. This is not a stone fire, so I won't die. But unless I put out the fire, I won't be able to get up easily. During this hour, Dietrich would burn his head in the fireplace, as if in his hands. We were in a hurry to burn them in the fireplace. Vin stretched out his hand from the bear's head to the fireplace. Toady boss, first on top, VMR. Now that you have survived the shepherd. At the moment when Dietrich burned the head of the barefoot teddy bears, he became confused for an hour. Lish Charlotte could collapse. Vona was shocked. Why, at such an important moment, the hours Alpenivsia? Even before the Vakanani, the manager lost his head. Vaughn wanted to go closer to Dietrich to understand what was happening, but the system wall stopped her. What is it? The system warning light was displayed. Charlotte's Garden, Karyuchi first on top in Nebespec. Enchant Dietrich. Do you accept the task? At times there will be a fine. Vaughn was enchanted by the surroundings. Get out of my head. This didn't happen in Greece? Everything is going smoothly. What do you think I need to do? If by the end of the scene only one rook was lost, if I think I'll be fined, there will be a fine. Charlotte was really afraid to have the fine removed from the system again. Thinking about the fine, she guessed the same as if she had guessed it. I will need to relive those horrors again. However, it does not let go, but only increases with the skin, painfully tearing from the middle. Charlotte was overcome by painful misfortunes as a systemic outbreak appeared. Steele's psyche is involved. The boss of the system has come to you. Calm down. Enchantment, like a system, doesn't count for everything anymore. Even so, the probability of failure is 95%, so no special problems can arise. It never happened last time. Charlotte decided to accept what the system was giving her. Well, it's not as necessary. I think everything will be fine. Dietrich also has a ring that protects him at an unsafe moment. Barriere, after an hour or so, started to go. Plucking up her smile, Charlotte hooted. Dietrich! She was amazed that she called out to him at such a moment. He turned to her and calmly asked, What is it? Vaughn didn't tell me anything and just stood there. Why did you call me and tell me? Perhaps you have done something wrong? Charlotte was already trying to make money better. Looking at him, she grimaced. And at that moment, she began to cry. No, everything is fine. I have no idea how to work. My head just hurts. System window. You were accepted by the manager. Enchantment success rate 5%. So it's going to get messy right away. System window. Zavantagenia is completed. The launch of Dietrich's enchantment begins. System window. Launch the screen from the printer. The rate of time enchantment has been reduced to 90%. What? Zakist Mayetka. Dietrich noted what had happened to Charlotte. Complacent in the drink. Are you all right? Dietrich, don't come near. Why so raptum? Without finishing speaking, I began to feel a sense of wonder, and my mind began to cloud over. System window. The enchantment was successful. Follow the system instructions. Dietrich would remain enchanted by her. Charlotte was disillusioned with the system. Twist me however you want. Having said this, she laughed in disappointment. My strength is gone. It doesn't matter what I want. Should we still give the right to choose? I still can't earn anything. Hello, did I miss Dietrich? System window. The effect of the steel mentality. I can pay a fine for this. Why did I bother? After these thoughts, the hands of the right valedictorian of this body from the grave reached out to her. Vaughn closed her eyes and washed her with licorice. Roby is all for himself, Charlotte. Everything is for your own good. Let's go without your altruism. Having opened her eyes, she wanted control over her body. Oh well, be as timid as I am. Having opened her arms for hugs, she began to greet him. Dietrich, come to me, hurry up. Enchanted by her, he couldn't do anything, except for the rumored conclusion that she told him to earn money. He threw the teddy bear's head out of his hands and straightened up to it. Well done, Swedish. Come closer. When Dietrich reached her, she gently touched my face. Vaughn gently walked her along her face. I want it for you. Having said this, Charlotte took him in her arms and gently kissed him on the lips. Being enchanted, I began to imagine the moment when Lindbergh first arrived at this place and treated Charlotte. The blonde was beautiful. I caught her in the act without realizing it and marveled at her like she was enchanted. When I looked closely at her, my thighs became wet. That's why I got wet, because I didn't drink. Dietrich continued to marvel at her. My heart, which had cooled under the board, again became hot and began to pound. I was already sad. Everyone else could know my name, even though we were moving forward in life and couldn't know each other. Possibly, through this, I go into the middle of this t-shirt. They don't suspect that I will be cursed by him and will not be able to leave. Turning around at the moment of the enchantment of Dietrich's enchantments, in volumes up to Charlotte. Vona hooted Yogo in a charming voice. Dietrich's, come to me. Charmingly, Charlotte's robe changed into a nightgown, and behind her appeared lightly. Seeing the enchantment of his eyes change to red, he could not help but obey Charlotte, and had heard before her. Vaughn laughed slyly after hearing his call. Well done. Hurry up and get to me, no matter how long you wait for me. Dietrich came before her. Vaughn leaned close to his face and said tenderly, I want it right away for you. Vaughn pulled up to his face to kiss him on the lips. Dietrich did not give up, but was heard to have conceded everything. Kissing her, she led him all the way to the bed, stepping back and following her to throw him down on the bed. Dietrich threw her down, pressing her down. Charlotte gently put her hands around his neck and said, I know how you marveled at me when the people came here first. You were overwhelmed by my beauty and could not take your eyes off. Charlotte began to thoroughly undress Dietrich, starting from above. Vaughn was quietly pulling his jacket off. Behind him, they tightened the shirt tightly. Dietrich did not hesitate, but stared at her right in front of his eyes. Charlotte, and when you begin, gently run your hand over her nose, tanning her white nightgown so that the area becomes clearer. Vona squeezed his hand and watered it. Dietrich, are you finishing, my little bastard? Vin asked. What do you need to earn? Charlotte looked to the side and pointed with her finger in the direction of where Penny's teddy bears were lying barefoot. Look there! Why don't you look like a teddy bear? At this hour, the barefoot began to sew his head to the sheepskin coat. Yakshcho yogo shkoda, shvidshi, help you. Vona said this with a sly chuckle. Dietrich looked in his direction. He looked at him calmly and asked, What do I need to do to help you? He is ready to earn everything. Go into the fireplace with the rotting place of a toy. Then you can help you, and the plush witch will live happily. Can you vikanati such a bastard? Dietrich looked at her and began to walk from the couch straight to the fireplace. Having dressed himself, he said, "So, I write this song for you, so that the teddy bear will be happy again." Dietrich sang, straight to the fireplace with a scorching fire. They come closer and closer to each other, and don't hesitate to get closer. A fluffy dog burst into the room screaming. The old dog Dietrich was able to come to you and get stuck. Charlotte repeated, "I love you!" Dietrich came out of the halfway with a longing. Why am I here, and why am I building a fireplace? Soon Charlotte began to come up to you, her eyes turning over their blue color. Vaughn was very upset. Dietrich hunched his head and asked in anger, "You've been working with me again. My head hurts so much." Charlotte was angry about this situation and came out of anxiety, trying to justify herself, but could not do anything. System window. I'm flying. You will be able to follow the system instructions directly. In the context of the reward for success, a stage of evil is created. What's this? Are you angry? System window. The steps of Charlotte's character have begun to rise. What is it? Charlotte began to get angry with the swipe, suddenly in the mess tied to the body in which she was infected. System window. The creation stage of evil is completed. Charlotte is angry, partly because of Lindbergh. With the help of the little lady's face, her thoughts appeared from time to time. At that moment, she was crying in front of the fireplace. "Toady, father, like Johannes, who took my doll," Vona said, looking at the fireplace where Penny was burning. Vaughn repeated with shaking hands, "Turn, turn, Penny! Matusha gave it to me for National Day." Gospodar Maetka said angrily, "Finish it! The punishment is over, so you two should go," Raptum said. Old man. Crying profusely, she and the witness shouted, "Father, don't take responsibility for the death of my mother." The Lord angrily rose from his chair and shouted threateningly at her, "Lock it! You want to understand, what do you say?" Vaughn continues to insist on her own. Mom died because Dad abandoned her. Father simply didn't like Pina. You hated everything that said anything about your mother. Take extra charge for Penny. Take responsibility for her. She continued to argue, as her father could no longer tolerate the pressure and waved his hand at her. Vona took punishment from the Zorstoki for her words. "Having hit my father very hard with my hand, I would denounce her without any force. The foam that burned in the hollow fireplace could only guard against her injuries. Don't cry. It's like I'm going to die. Everything will be fine. Don't cry for that. It's even more painful, and if you're sicker, then I'll be even more painful with you. I just wanted to please you. Since then, I came into the world and spoke to you. That's all I could get." The Lord brutally punished the little lady. Traces of blood were visible on the underside. "Who wants to call? Shut this girl up. It is necessary to make use of this opportunity quickly and correct these bad habits quickly." A woman came into the room and took the lady away. At that moment, when the little lady was taken away, Pena weepingly marveled at her hands and marked a ring on them. "You no longer want justice, but I wish I was alive. I just want the stench to spread. I want to kill them all." System window. The anger will end. Z. Charlotte has a debuff. Vaughn fell to her knees, crying and suffocating. It hurt even more. She put her hand to her breasts. "What's this?" "My breasts hurt so much and everything is squeezing." Penny screamed like a rat. "Give me my ring!" Charlotte felt it and looked to see what was there. The boss of the teddy bears had already reappeared and was ready to attack Dietrich. Vaughn was deep in thought. "Peony? Dietrich?" During this hour he got even more hurt. "How long have I been in the dark?" Having injured his hand, he fights against Penny. Dietrich sat squeezing his wounded hand and thinking. "Jak raptum Zjagov guessed. Do you want the ring that the bears gave you? Having taken the ring from your finger, you have asked, do you want to take this ring? Did I guess correctly about your names?" Penny, who had been marveling at him with anger, shook her ring and was caught in the act, not resembling anything. "Then take your ring back!" Dietrich squeezed the ring in his hand and forcefully threw him into the hollow fireplace. Having finished, Penny, without fear, quickly rushed into the fireplace to take away the ring with words, "No, my ring!" The bear climbed into the fireplace and started screaming in pain. It turned out to be systemically wrong, launching the hatred of a dead doll. Charlotte and Dietrich stood guard as Penny burned in the fireplace. Vaughn chewed the ring without caring. Charlotte was in shock in front of Dietrich. Are you out of your mind? How can such an item be possible? How we are going to live? I want to think about it for more than an hour. We are to blame before Penny dies. Dietrich, you need to move. Dissolution of these actions, which Charlotte cruelly threw out to herself. Vaughn fell painfully to the ground. System window, Boyville 15%. Dietrich was surprised to see Charlotte lying on the bed. Don't bother me. Vaughn was thinking beyond fear. I had mercy. It seems like he can't sense me at all. Why bother? What should I say to make you happy? System window. An hour until bedtime. Tre Villini. Dietrich is alive, and I will tell you that I will accept the fine for this. I will not harm you. Hello. Why do I need to help you at the cost of my torment? As soon as we die, don't you marvel at my endless sacrifices? All my efforts will be futile, so why will I be okay? I'm still human, even if I inhabited an NPC. System window. Stalev's psyche is involved. Charlotte calmed down and took the fluffy dog out of the fire. That's right. I need to stop with this before I get too attached. An hour to sleep, 1 Valina 8 seconds. Dietrich, if you become a populist, I will bury you in a beautiful flower pot, so don't look too bad at me. Check it out! What should we do? Dietrich walked towards the burning teddy bears and took a bucket of water. Without hesitation, he immediately turned to Penny to put out the half-mite. The fire and water began to quickly go out. The foam no longer burned. She fell silent for a moment and then began to laugh. Has it become freezing cold? The plush witch began to laugh happily, expressing his adoration. Dietrich rushed off somewhere. Having started to grow angry, we can quickly joke in the song. He went through everything in search of a ring and threw it into the fireplace. Charlotte was delighted with his actions. Vaughn didn't understand why she should be afraid. Why are you roguish? Raptum wine. Znayshoff. Dietrich could see a ring in the middle of a great number of sung. He knelt in front of Pina, who was lying on the ground, and with great care she stretched out the ring, as she so desperately wanted to turn it. Penny was happy with his actions. My ring? Dietrich asked her. Was the duel necessary in order to find out the wasted card ring? He took Pina's paw and placed it in the new ring. If I knew that this was yours, I would not have taken it right away. Without attacking. The pennies marveled at the ring and at Dietrich. Turning my ring. Vaughn didn't understand his actions. Alabula was even more grateful for the fact that I turned her ring. The aura around her became light and suggested goodness. System window. Dietrich revealed the secret scene. Lasagna doll. Dietary attention to this situation. System window. Negorod for the beginning of a secret scene. Spala Zupineno. Did the gate close itself? Dietrich marveled at Pena with his sum. You could just ask to return the ring back. Without a call for a duel. Penny honestly confirmed. I thought you wouldn't turn my back if I asked you back. That's why I was so upset. Ludino, when you turn the ring, don't be surprised at all the pain that I caused you. You know my speech, but you hurt your hands. Vona handed you the ring. It is also Pina's responsibility to take responsibility for those who have harmed people. So I will give you this ring. Dietrich was pleased that Penny decided to give a ring to you. He reached out his hand to take the ring and asked, Many. Why? Vaughn confirmed. I'm going to die anyway, so you better take it with you. You are mocking those people. You are such a good person. You are trying to help tell those who did you harm. Vibach, why didn't I understand your intentions so much? Vaughn began to become well known. Dietrich took the ring and was amazed. Charlotte, who was watching over him, was pleasantly surprised. I forgot about this option of walking the barefoot stage. I thought that nothing would come of it. Tom threw out of his head a secret move to grill the first one on top, which I had never tried before. There are 2 ways to overcome your boss. Kill the teddy bear Penny, burning it in the fireplace. Abo Vikonati iyi Bajanaya. Penny completely disappeared, having deprived himself of the remaining portion of the powder needed for the transition. The other 2 powders that were in Dietrich began to glow brightly and unite together, making each other laugh. When the smells are mixed, a fragment is created that allows you to move on to the next one, another one on top of the mat. System window. All the pepper powder is on top of the zebras, the first fragment of creations. Dietrich denied the right to rise higher. Having received it, I was allowed to cross to another one at the top. Charlotte and Dietrich headed to the gathering to get up. Having reached the exit, the stench was pleasantly relieved by the possibility of rising to another top. Vona said. Nareshti. Dietrich turned around and looked at Charlotte in shock. With a glance, you can see how you can go up the stairs. Charlotte, with a bright, warm laugh, asked him to get up. Let's move on to the other one, Dietrich. He turned around and looked at the long descent that led to the mountain. I spent 3 hours a day and spent a lot of time last night. Having lost everything that had happened with him on the first version, he began to fully climb along the descents to the other top. They are careful about going up the snowy slopes. Charlotte followed him, watching for his reaction. She was happy that he got it right. Perhaps the point is that the critical moment has been lost behind, or in beautiful gatherings. In my endless walks of life, I have seen this moment many times. All at once, my heart is pounding in my chest. The more we move, the more complex and important the surfaces will be. At the same time, I want to enjoy the moment. In any situation, if the stench comes, Dietrich will spend it on himself. Let's get ready. Guests are not allowed on second floor. Tim is calling for an hour. It's night outside, dawn in the sky. The temple servants will continue to listen to the rumors of the missing Dietrich. The smells rode horses through the forest. Yak Raptum one screamed. Tipan Elias! Vin asked in shock. What was the matter? Has the first group arrived in the village yet? They were close to the leaders. We haven't arrived there yet, Mr. Tobio. Ordered it to be handed over. Today, the first group will be busy making jokes. They changed course and headed to the residence. Elias, having considered the cost of their decision, said, Garazd perhaps is worth it, and the best choice for them. Sir Dietrich went to escort Archduke Claret. According to eyewitnesses, the last time they were killed in the village of Kangers. Alivlasnitsa told Gothelia in Hagersey for him. They told me that he was heading towards the village of Owen. Owen is a small village, which lies on the road to the residence of the Archduke. One thing, it's not going back to normal. It's not safe there. The Stinks thought that they would be able to find out if they followed his tracks. If only the Stinks came there. What kind of guy? All the inhabitants of Owen were mercilessly killed. They stole and stole everything they could. There were corpses lying across. Having finished, Elias began to give punishment. Slow down investigation, explore the village, and find survivors. Everyone grew up in the jokes of people, like a rapt. Pain Elias! I know Ditin! Vinshvidko ran with the baby in his arms. The Stinkers handed the wounded boy over to the priest for a bath. Elias asked, What else have you seen? No one else. The priest rejoiced at the boy's magic as he began to rap towards you. Boy, T. Prishov Dotami? When you arrived to you, having begun to weeping blessings. To the priest, holy celebrant, kindly help us. A group of robbers attacked our village. There were 3 of them. The stench, with its courage, killed all the inhabitants of the village. Turning around in the towel. When we got up, go. Until you were inhaled with a mirror pill, you lost your bright sparkle. When I got there, a strange systemic window appeared, but I decided to think about this 3 rubles later. Responsibility? Now I need to be even more important. Vaughn came to the room with speeches. And that is exactly what I need. Farm items for Dietrich. System window. You went into Pina's room. Vaughn happily opened the doors. And she happily went looking for the necessary items. There are 2 items here that you definitely need to pick up. A ring of fire, which can release half sizes, and earrings of resistance to a curse, which can break the spell of low-class monsters. It's better to take them on May Day. Charlotte walked to the nightstand. Let's marvel. It's a shame to be here. Vaughn began to open her mouth, but there was nothing there, just empty rubbish. Charlotte Boula was very wounded, even the subject Mavbooty there. Vona decided not to lose hope and marvel at all possible places. Otherwise, she would not have wandered through the empty space, having searched the entire room from top to bottom. Vona couldn't find out anything and sat down on the ground. We can't do this. What's on the right? Have you ever changed? Charlotte was thinking deeply about this food when a dog ran into the room. He happily arrived in Charlotte. Vaughn looked tenderly at him and asked, Malyuk, Prishov, have you eaten yet? Vin lay on his back so they could smell his tummy. In front of someone, you miraculously eat yourself. Well done. Looks like it's hopeless to poke around at objects here. Charlotte took the fluffy thing in her hands and stood up from the excuse. He was amazed. Before speaking, do you need to go to Dietrich? I just guessed what I needed to earn money. Vona headed to her room. At this hour, Dietrich sat in the room and looked after his sword, wiping it to remove the blood and checking it for readiness. Dietrich changed his clothes again and tore them. We looked already tired, and in the new darkness there were circles under our eyes. Having treated him, Charlotte happily walked to the new dog in her arms. You will never turn around to see her. Charlotte frowned and became furious again. Dietrich? But again, I didn't believe anything, just rubbing my sword. Charlotte appeared in the dark, deep in thought. Again, he ignores me. How many days are there already? Dietrich was always in this position after the battle with Paney. It seems that he himself said something kind about his wounds, but it's still good. Why bother? If you deprive everything like that, you will only start to respect it. Dietrich, are you going to ignore me for the whole hour? Were your words about the fact that you trust me a lie? Having felt these words, I fell into a stupor and became angry. He turned sharply and shouted at her in anger. You have spoiled me! Vona asked calmly. Help me! Afterwards, she thought that she wanted to be victorious and mischievous again. What other tricks do you want to cheat? I know you don't trust me, but can you help me just once? I can't handle this on my own. I need your time now. Thankfully, she said. All three of them seemed to calm down and look at her, thinking, he couldn't deprive her herself, but since things are not safe there, she could get hurt. Seeing the thoughts themselves, you became angry. Having overcome his pride, he decided to help. Lead. Charlotte fooled him again with his thoughts. Fool. Charlotte led Dietrich to the food warehouse. Vin asked in shock, Did you ask me to help you move the food? I told you that I can't break in on my own. After Charlotte's words, the stench began to transfer products to another place. Having carried all the boxes of food, Dietrich sighed importantly and said, If that's all, then I'll go on my right. Having said this, he turned around and was ready to sing, but Charlotte grabbed him by the sleeve of his shirt. Check it out. It's a secret that I save food here. Don't tell anyone, okay? Vona calmly asked him to keep the secret. Dietrich was shocked when he asked, In this world there is no one except you and me. To whom can I tell about this? Vaughn raps interruptingly. The dialer is ringing. It looks like the doors have opened. Thanks for your help, now you can go. Dietrich is overwhelmed. You will welcome me again. Finish it. Let's talk another time. You turned around and left the warehouse. Charlotte was proud of herself and thought, It is impossible for them to take away our valuable hedgehogs. These are supplies for me and Dietrich. Charlotte looked around her warehouse and thought, Maybe I can tidy up the 3 rubles here? Vaughn began to put everything in order here. The Great Lindbergh's graph with a skin surface becomes foldable. If penny is driven in, the food products are not renewed. So now we can survive on the remains of the hedgehog. It is possible to find products on another version, otherwise everything may be closed. The doors here only open when the bell rings. There is a lot of paste in the rooms, which needs to be carefully removed. I have a map, so I know the Depastki. Last time I tried to get ahead of Dietrich, but they ignored me. Well, if you can't do anything wrong, you'll be able to systemically avoid delays. Before the speech, it's time for the next boss to show up. That's all she said. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Dietrich took away part of the Shodanik. You can guess the sun, axis, and memory. Is it possible to go little by little to Dietrich? At this moment, I stood in the room with easels and began to read the book. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Dietrich entered the artist's room. The secret history of the other above is unblocked. The history of the Shodanik began with, Today's ladies are celebrating the 14th, so they asked artists to paint a portrait. Almost all the masters passed by and laughed, but the lady once again frowned and denounced her. But she didn't laugh. Dad asked her to laugh. Donechko, try to laugh for the portrait. Don't want. Nothing fun is happening. The artists could not get their work through the closure of the ice. as they did not want to help them. But they didn't dare to sing against the will of the ruler, who wanted to enhance the girl's charming appearance. They were amazed at this. Like a rapt with a bunch of wealthy artists, the young lad was fed. So we need to have fun. The maestries, who were sitting and watching, marveled at his incomprehensible words. The lord did not deserve to say anything. Frowns appeared on his face. Ale at that moment, the lady clicked with him and asked, "Who are you?" The young artist marveled and pointed at himself with his finger. "Do you want to know what my name is?" Turning to reality, Dietrich calmly read the story from the part of the child he could find in this room, as if Charlotte had just arrived and asked, "What, is it important to you?" He turned back in shock and noted her. Having stood up until the new arrival, without saying anything, he simply turned around and continued reading the book. Charlotte didn't want him to ignore her, but she wanted to help him and looked at him with disdain. "Don't come out. Let's marvel. What's this?" Vona looked at the pictures and guessed. "I definitely solved this riddle when I went through the game. Vaughn wanted to tell you. Listen, don't these shadows seem marvelous to you?" After listening to her and understanding, we quickly began to connect the pictures one by one, focusing on the shade, and in a new way, it turned out to work. Vin looked shocked at the result. Having crushed the pictures, what comes out is not a complete picture, but an inscription of the artist's name, Yogo Imyam Bulovalek. It is quite a difficult task to find out the name of an artist from history. As soon as Dietrich said the name of the artist in his voice, the box suddenly appeared and began to open up brightly. Dietrich was amazed, but wanted to check what was in it. Perhaps there will be powder here, some kind of brown object. He immediately sensed a wonderful sound behind him. We quickly turned around, so that we were ready before anything else. "What, I call pasta?" Dietrich turned around and shook Charlotte, who suddenly began to lose her nerve. Vin was very surprised by this. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Dietrich sipped off the powder. She marveled in panic at Charlotte, who was falling for the forgery. System window, launching Charlotte's anger. It was thrown at the moment when the lady asked the artist who was guilty. The young artist stepped forward, bowing his head and introducing himself with dignity. "Allow me to introduce myself. Call me Outrigger." With a gentle chuckle, he washed his face, sitting on his knees in front of the lady and the lord of his mother. The lady was dissatisfied with his behavior. "What kind of worthless artist dares to show off to me like that?" Vaughn treated him disrespectfully. "Having said that, will you make me laugh?" "Yes, lady, they sang their songs. You couldn't tell us." Soon the atmosphere in the hall began to change. Everyone noticed that the lady was evil. "How do you want to make me laugh?" Also in my thoughts, "If you can't make me laugh, I will punish him so that he won't dare to be like that." Tim Dietrich tried to bring Charlotte to you for an hour, but he was a coward and a croak. "Charlotte, come here, Charlotte." She started to come to you and said, "Headache." We trimmed it in our hands and asked, "Have you arrived yet?" Vin started talking dissatisfiedly. "You wasted your money so raptly." Charlotte was shaking her head in severe pain, and she interrupted him by speaking aggressively. "Can you clean up your ugly face?" Dietrich was in great shock. Having felt these words, he took them close to his heart and became very embarrassed and rehearsed them. More blatantly denouncing, Charlotte's mind became clearer. Her head hurt less, and she quickly realized what she had said to you. "What did I just say?" Vona began to justify herself to him. "I wanted to say in a more beautiful way, 'Don't be crazy about me, it's not right.'" Vona glanced at his face and realized what to say to the lighthouse. "Now it has become worse. Why bother?" Raptum Dietrich stood up and said, "Garazd, since you're okay, I'll go. I hope we don't get stuck anymore." "Do I thank you for mine?" "I only helped you," he shouted interruptingly. "What if I asked for help?" Vin said ruinously. "I still can't figure it out. Do you want to help me or do some mischief to me? I, fool, can't even touch you with the tip of my finger. Otherwise I can't kiss you until such time as this will happen. So don't joke with me anymore." Charlotte looked important. It will be important to step up to something new. Well, I knew this would happen. Vaughn began to come up with excuses. As if it didn't happen, as we know, new rooms will be opened. Vaughn looked up and thought, "We are still in touch with Dietrich again, so we may prefer. On the street there is a plank, which meant that you wanted to come to the Metak. If the stench comes, there is no time to lose it. Tim is calling for an hour. Ishav plan. The robbers flowed in from the village as holy officials, where they killed all the people. From the boy, these people are all continuing to follow us without hesitation. Didn't the stench get into such and such a plank? That's why I told you to get out of that village. The other clicked on his testimony and said, Cursed Bevduri from the temple. What if the stench bothered us? We didn't lose anyone alive. Yes, we tried to come in and get close. Alas, that was not the case. The departures from the tattoos on our necks made us angry. We almost died right on the spot, so talk about the leak. But they won't follow us that far. Not a single person in a healthy mind goes into this bad place. One of the robbers pointed to the cards. Look there! Was there such a great Maytalk in Lindbergh? I don't know anything about anyone. The stinks began to congeal and congeal. The smells opened the doors and greeted Dietrich as he passed by. Having helped people, they were able to open the doors to the living quarters. The stinking stars have arrived, and why bother? The white-haired robber thought, From the old man, whose name is the hospodar. You need to ask. I'll ask again. The road we took was very chilly, and we didn't know that the Lord was here. He interrupted them. Have you opened the doors yet? Did you come in? The robber is overdrinking. What? Vian dissolutions. How did you open the doors? Raptum Charlotte began to descend. The system buried its body and began to ask guests to come into the middle. She was all wet and came out of the bathroom. We kindly ask you to the great Lindbergh Maytalk. Everyone was shocked when Charlotte appeared in this image, especially Dietrich. Vaughn stood proudly in her nightgown and got to know them. My name is Charlotte. I am his mother's room. Before the robbers arrived, Charlotte was guessing the moments on her own. 1,406, 1,407. Where do I know? 1,400 in total, 1,409. She tried to open the doors and shouted, 1,100. Vaughn, with empty eyes, who did not show the will to live, continued to chew on trying to open them up. I guessed this moment. 1,111, 1,212. Vaughn was still sitting in front of the door, excitedly. This has been happening for a long time. I was only locked in the castle for a little while. Guess about the clock, if I may have half gotten it. Charlotte left the bath and coughed. Water got into my nose and I can't move. After coughing up the water, she felt better. Vona wanted to relax. I have no strength. I didn't think I'd fall asleep in the bathtub. My body is no longer what it used to be. After I climbed onto another one, the surface changed. Even though they wrote the responsibility, in fact, this is the same fine. System window. Charlotte suffered from the disease. The effect of the steel psyche is reduced by 10%. Physical performance is reduced. The only thing I don't understand is the advancement of the stage of evil. I thought it was good, since they gave it to me like in the city. Every time, when I get angry, I waste my money. And with a steely psyche, I can't control my emotions. After another attack, the indicator was still virus. System window, level 13%. What happens when the number reaches 100? I don't want to guess about the coagulum of KV, but maybe the system wants to piss me off with the help of Charlotte. The rest of the room? Charlotte was thinking about those who could be far away from her, as she quickly spotted the people nearby and gave up. The system began to choke up her body, and she realized that the stench had reached her. Those who bring them restlessness, turning around at the moment when she came out of their way. Dietrich looked embarrassed. Why are you looking like that? Vona didn't get angry at anyone. She just asked for guests. Go to the Great Lindbergh Hall. My name is Charlotte. The system turned control over the body, and the stench told the guests that it was going to bed. Now shut up the stinks here. The white bristlecone has been overfed. So, do you want to say that there are curses, but you can leave once you know the chamber of truth? And through the chain, Pan Dietrich and Lady Charlotte were closed here. Dietrich calmly confirmed. That's what everyone said. Having sung in his words, the robber began to mock him. Ajay cannot curse. You don't believe them. At the same time, his other friends began to laugh with him. They didn't care that this could be true. The white-haired robber rushes to the door. You have such serious accusations. I already thought that this is true. Are the doors easy to open? Having tried to open them, it was Marine. Why don't they open up, right? Beat. Tick. Let me try to open it. One of the robbers began to justify himself. I told you, this place is ruined. From the boy, why should we work? Having calmed down, the stinks began to soak in. Does that mean we won't be able to leave until we find the Chamber of Truth? Dietrich Vidpov. So everything is true? One of the robbers asked. How did you know about this? Dietrich thought for a moment. Charlotte interrupted Yogo. I came to my senses as I wandered through the rooms trying to find the exit. I was just lucky. The white-haired robber chuckled with disbelief. Lucky, wise. Since this is the case, is it possible for us to introduce ourselves? My name is Felix. I have greatly appreciated my father as a salesman. The white-haired robber introduced himself. So we are with these boys as friends of the family. Charlotte thought of marveling at them. Brachette, you robbers. I introduced myself briefly with short haircuts. My name is Hesta. I worked with wood and stones. The other introduced himself. I'm Eric. Dietrich decided to accept the place in any way. My name is Dietrich, practicing in the fields in a native village. Charlotte also said no matter what. As I already said, my name is Charlotte. I'm engaged in domestic dominion. Dietrich looked at her suspiciously, but said nothing. Vona thought, so what? Having conceived it yourself, but you can't? Dietrich decided to ask them. How did you end up here? Lindbergh is a ghost town. People tell you not to come here. To be honest, we jumped in. The village where we lived was recently attacked by a group of robbers. Dietrich was shocked. Seeing the news about the robbers, he became angry and clenched his fist. Rogues, you say? The stinks were good. Yes, the stench is merciless. Elderly people, children, women. Everyone was trampled. We rushed in, but suddenly, we began to close ourselves in the mat as we entered. Charlotte thought. Obviously, they smell like the same robbers. Dietrich overfed them. Can you tell me where that village is located? Felix happily confirmed. In when? We were rushing in to see the stars. Everything happened there. It seems like we could have flown in. System window. Beaujeville 17%. Dietrich said, Owen, I haven't been there long enough. Everyone was so kind. They killed a lot of smart lads, and they are young, just like those who created this family. Charlotte marveled at Godville's zeal with alarm. Godville continues to grow. There is such shock. We feel that good people have died. You know what the stink is? God's will. It's better to do something that I don't know, so as not to show the stench. Dietrich, calm down. The stinkers said that they had flown in. Whoever you eat will also be healthy. Hesta watched her for a while. So? It flowed richly, Dietrich said. I'll come out soon. I won't let him off the hook for anything. Having said this with utmost cruelty, without showing or crying, I regret them. Seeing Dietrich's words about the aftermath, Felix began to worry greatly. In recent days, the cold water has passed. Yak Axis. You will change the atmosphere by energizing. Are you ready to speak? Dietrich took his hand away from her and said, Not at all. We suddenly stumbled into the mat next to each other. There is nothing between us. Felix chuckled slyly. I understood. Raptum let out a ringing sound. Everyone cheered. What is that sound? Dietrich Vidpov. This link is sensitive to the skin. When on the other top, a new room opens up. Having refed Hesta. You said a new room is opening? Dietrich Vidpov. So, behind such doors, there are shepherds and monsters. Felix with a lot of attention. Todi, we also want to come in. Dietrich Zupinyayuchiik. No! I just said, it's not safe. Charlotte interrupted Yogo. Garazd, I'll show you. Vidmova will only bite them. Nothing good will come of it. Dietrich muttered and said, No way! On the first version, there are clean rooms. It's not safe to call, so don't go out. And you will follow me quickly. Dietrich quickly pulled Charlotte along with her, because she had lost her shirt, so she let her cover herself. Having appeared before the unworthy eyes, pressing them to the wall and saying, You knew they were coming, am I right? Charlotte began to justify herself. No, I really didn't know. Finn interrupted. They themselves said that it was necessary to seize the hedgehog. Vaughn confirmed it. I just thought that I might as well come. Dietrich, don't tell them anything about me. He clenched his fist and said in frustration, Don't want. What am I guilty of? Do you think I'll just take it away and just be careful? How do you play with people? Work whatever you want, but not work for filthy companies. Having said this, he turned around and walked away. Charlotte said to the Yumu, Garast, how amusing! You can tell them whatever you want, and as your soul desires. You open your mouth, and the stench will smear into me. It's through me that you'll lock everything up in that damned little cage. If I'm unlucky, I'll be caught and given a drink. There is no guarantee that after my death the stench will go away. Dietrich, if I die, will you talk about me? Vin said, Ruined. You are simply denying your karma. Charlotte appeared on a new day, even if it would not be a shame for her if she died in their hands. How to beat the wine. Charlotte was shown singing loudly, saying to the rest, Garast. Robbie, as you know. Possibly, let's stay busy. Vaughn was really embarrassed by his words. Karma, you say? Why have I done such a rotten thing to get rid of it? Dietrich felt guilty for his words. We understand that having developed it more painfully and having increased its symptoms. Check it out. Garazed. I won't tell them anything, as you want. The ale in me is the mind. Vaughn jabbered to listen to him. What else do you think? Dietrich said. Don't harm people. Do not treat them the same way you treated me. Charlotte looked important and looked at him. After a while, reluctantly, I'm good for your mind. Dietrich was viciously ahead. Don't wave at me. Kiss me generously, she thought with a glance. It's hard to believe that there's no trace of stench. To get over him, Charlotte took him by the hand and said, Garazed, Axis. Vona took him by the little finger and said with a calm look in her eyes, I promise that I will not harm them in any way. Dietrich marveled at what she had earned. What are you doing? Vona thought. Well, there is no such method here. There you go. Apply your magic and roll over. This is a special ritual for priests. You need to cross your little fingers. Did Dietrich ask for the ritual? It's important to see and change your mind to drink it carefully. Please let it be so. Charlotte was relieved that she had once again found herself trusting her. But there was no big problem with Vinicle. What? Is my finger stuck? There was no way she could pull her finger out of Dietrich's hands. Vona began to wiggle. Dietrich squeezed her finger in his hand and said threateningly, Obovyaskovo, finish your decoration. Vin looked at her threateningly. The sight of her clattering made Charlotte feel funny. Vaughn was unable to stream laughter. Yomu felt weary. Don't laugh. Garazed. Is everything good now? Vin Vidpov. South Charlotte led Yogo along. Let's go now, everyone is looking for us. Charlotte and Dietrich turned to the robbers. But when the Stinks arrived, they were very strong. In the New World came through. Charlotte said in awe. What? Is there anyone? Dietrich Vidpov. Perhaps the Stinks went to die in the room. This situation did not suit her. I have a bad feeling. Things are going to get worse now. Light began to set in the morning. The system warning light was displayed. Eric knows the subject. A ring that can harm another person or a monster. Charlotte was very upset. What? It's impossible, why now? This item will appear later, through New Dietrich in Greece. Having died many times, I'm obliged to misinterpret this. Charlotte quickly headed to the robbers to change gears. She ran away as the stench began to leave the room. I marked them and sang. Oh, Lady Charlotte? Vaughn is very important, dying while running. Pan Eric, I didn't drink this ring, Vin said. What? Vono fell for a lie. From me I picked it up. Vaughn thought dubiously. It fell into a frame-up, you say? Pan Eric, I feel bad about myself. Perhaps more beautifully, Bulo B. Yogo Vikanuti. Raptum Dietrich caught up with Charlotte and asked, What's going on here? Eat calmly. A ring appeared that had never existed before. Vaughn is changing. This is quite suspicious. That's why I pleased Vikanuti Yogo. Dietrich looked at her suspiciously. Why are you so surprised at me? Why don't you trust me? If they know about the power of the ring, then we won't run into problems. It's our fault to take him before it happens. Like a chandelier, the chandelier that hung so beautifully on the wall began to fall on Eric. Dietrich covered Charlotte with himself in order to kidnap her. Charlotte fell on the pretext of 3 rubles and hit her head. Dietrich covered her with his body so that the tricks would not fall on her. The robbers began to scream like a rapture. Hesta wiggles. Eric, your denunciation! The chandelier injured him in person. The ring began to fade, and Eric's shock began to transfer to Charlotte's face. She started to run out of blood. Dietrich was amazed. Why is there a wound on your face? Eric was amazed. Has my wound spread to another person? Charlotte thought. From Daddy. Whoa, how quickly do you know the power of the ring? Eric said. So what's the matter with this ring? Charlotte wanted to pick up the ring. Still, I am guilty of taking the ring by force. Dietrich stammers. You need to be killed. It's best not to wear this ring, Mr. Eric. You might still get hurt through someone else. Charlotte was shocked by his words. Felix confirms. True, Eric. Raptum would like to suddenly get hurt for you. I want to stop worrying about it. Dietrich brought Charlotte into the room with beds and sat her down on the bed. Tim sometimes looked at her for her. Charlotte touched her wounded cheek. Once removed from objects, the wound itself will not heal at all. What is more important than to write off those who have suffered from a breakdown? This item can be picked up in the best way possible. Why did he appear so raptly in front of the robbers, and why did the chandelier fall down? How all the furnishings for them had been successfully arranged. It's impossible to worry about what else will happen if we miss an hour. Dietrich, I think we can choose this ring. Dietrich shuddered at her words. And who is leading this ring? Vaughn sang loudly. You, obviously. Dietrich knows the necessary skills. Don't go like that. I'm guilty of going into rooms, lest they suffer in my place. Passing on her faces. For me, the stench is without bark. And I'll tell you about every bad thing. Don't think about fools. Well, they gave me a dress. Those in front of them have given their hands and feet on their right. Charlotte marveled at him as he thought about what she was doing. As if you couldn't get caught, even if a treasure connected with Eric's ring appeared in her. She opened her lips to apply. System window. The one who cares about the other is on top of Charlotte, to know the ring of the other one. I was honored with this treasure. For the coming day. Early. The bell rings, announcing the opening of a new room on another version. Dietrich felt a wonderful sound from the hidden warehouse, and Charlotte stole the food. Prishovshi tutti there above Bezlad? He was very shocked. What kind of guy? What is going on here? You want to address the situation. Once upon a time, Charlotte lay on the ground, and the robbers sat with a pleased expression, denouncing her and worried about her. When Charlotte stood up and looked at Dietrich, her eyes changed from red to blue. Vaughn was shocked. Dietrich died very often in the game. More than once, my life has ended in the first place. May you move on to the next one. I met robbers and died. During the Vicon of the Singing Mines, the stench entered the rooms. Dietrich Bouv radium ich baciti. All the robbers succumbed to the impulse that dictated them to ruthlessly capture the wonderfully refined Dietrich. For the fun of the stench, they were happy to hide their real specialness, pretending to be kind, so as to lose their relationship with Dietrich. After that, if they trusted him, they mercilessly killed you. Do you mean? It was we who attacked that village and killed everyone. The robbers beat him to death, and as a result, he died. Ale, maybe if he were alive, God would respect him. Such a worthless end for Dietrich was in Greece. Turning around until the moment when she came to the warehouse. The robbers found the warehouse and feasted on the products. Felix noted it. Lady Charlotte? Eric asked. Are you normal? Vona thought. The fool did not deceive me. The stench was strong. It looks like you were very hungry since you ate some glasses. If hedgehogs are still in short supply, it would be better to eat them in small portions. I'll clean up the leftovers. Vona headed towards the table. When Charlotte approached them, Eric chuckled slyly. Vin decided to get along with her so that she knew her place. When she came closer, she put her foot down to drink it. Charlotte grabbed hold of her leg and began to fall. She fell to the ground, but was able to soften the fall for 3 minutes with the help of her hands. The stench was smelled by the fells. She just wanted to get up so she could drink some water to get rid of the stink. Yak Eric threw a chest scarf on her head. They mock her and ask, God, are you okay? The tablecloth started rapping. The stinks continued to mock her. Charlotte was even more angry at their evil ridicule. Vaughn couldn't stand it anymore. Varto, just wake up. I'll just wake up and everything will become better. The system has always fed it. Do you want a Vickerstadt enchantment? Dietrich rushed into the room, having heard the wondrous sound. There will be shocks. What's going on here? Looking at Charlotte, who was sitting on the underside, she asked with suspicion. Why are you looking like that? What happened to you? Eric explained it with a chuckle. Lady Charlotte fell into a fit, and the tablecloth caught on her hand as it fell. Vin asked. Is it true? Charlotte said. Yes, I'm crazy about it. If I tell the truth, you won't believe me. There were the stars who said. The gentleman took part of the hedgehogs, so the provisions that we need to cut down a little. Well, I need to wash myself, so I'll leave you first. She came out of the warehouse with a loud slam on the door. Charlotte walked down the corridor, embarrassed. She was very upset because she could not earn anything for them. Dietrich Wilting followed her and educated her. Are you okay? Vaughn doesn't show emotions. Yes, everything is fine. Her behavior was very impressive. Nothing really special happened there? Vona said calmly. Nothing happened. By energetically re-drinking, I'll ask again. Nothing really special happened there? Vona started rapping. She jabbered and asked, So what happened and are you going to work? I was happy and nourished. He clenched his teeth and tensed, sensing something unacceptable. What really happened to you? Will you tell me? Vaughn turned around to see his reaction. Having denounced him vorazely, she realized that there was no better way to say it. Vona turned around and said, Nothing really. Dietrich did not understand. Why are you doing this? They themselves are not similar to themselves. It's better to behave like before. Vaughn asked jokingly. Then can I earn money from them? Vin became wary. Why haven't you realized that I'm in your respect? If we are together, then I will not be able to earn anything. It is necessary to send him out. Dietrich, are you going to go to the new room? Walking after her, saying, Yes, I'll go. I also want to get ahead of you. They walked up to her and said with wonder in their eyes, You are also coming for mine. Vaughn asked, startled. What? Vin said. How then do I know what you will be doing during my time off? Vona thought. From being tied to me. Vaughn was watching what was going on. Who knows what will happen in the room? I'm afraid of 3 rubles. Dietrich is in a stupor. Are you still afraid? Vaughn prodavjuchi yogo perekonati. I don't waste anything, I waste it. Vin is ahead of the curve. Obichanka cannot be simply dated. And back it up with activities. Vona left Sprobi perekonati yogo. Okay, I'm going. Garist, take me to my room, Dietrich. System window. The one who cares about the other one will squawk at you when you reach his destination and ask you to hurry up. For an hour the robbers walked around the rooms and drove monsters into the middle. What, is he already dead? Why is it so easy? Eric rubbed his knife on his coat and said with a satisfied expression, I didn't really have any fun with him. It was boring. Perhaps we can catch that girl and have some fun with her. Hesta with the concentration of species. It is possible. I think it will be fun. Felix laughed widely and said, Number he came up with a very insidious idea to amuse them. Eric, not understanding his intentions, asked, Why? Felix vid poviv. Once you're involved, why not pay more? Eric asked, Yak? Vin vidpov. It seems like the girls are getting along with the guy. What can I say? There is very little trust between them, and one wonders that she will soon disappear. Vikaristam to say. And it's amazing how much a person's knowledge can be trampled. Hesta buvduzit sikavleni yoga plan. Sound funny? What do you need to earn? Felix said. For the cob, let's cook yich. Let's say that the girl was aiming at the ring. Let's take a look at their reaction, Eric asked. What do we need? Felix said. Don't be surprised by those who made money for us. She didn't say anything. That means they don't trust you, otherwise you won't believe it. Don't you want to take a look at the stench of depriving one of one? Felix and Hesta discussed the plan in earnest. Eric doesn't bother with his plan after choosing his petty. Felix asked him, Where are you going? We need you. Eric Aishov was thinking along the corridor. I don't understand. What the hell is so funny about this? I'm bored to death. Do you need to work on the front? I asked myself how to earn better. You will begin to believe in yourself that you can earn everything yourself. I can't cope with this ring alone. That girl, it seems, even wanted to take him from me. Why bother? Is it possible to lure the girl for help and beat him in, and then show the man her dead body? The guys along the corridor are contemplating their miraculous plan to amuse him, as if he felt the cold running down his back. Sensing the unsafe situation, he quickly turned around to see who was there. In the darkness, the silhouette of a little boy could be seen. Eric filled with fear. Who's there? But the silhouette of the boy did not confirm this, but he only came close enough to it. Eric stood in a stupor, unable to comprehend what was going on here. What? This child? Are the stars here? Stemryavi Vishov, little lad. His hair was as dark as anything, and his eyes were as bright as blue. There are earrings on the ears. Eric was in great shock. After giving the little boy 3 rubles in front of him, he began to calm down. Marvel at this new man, thinking, whose damned mother were the children in? Didn't they say anything about the children? Eric squealed in no-go. Little one, how many deaths have you had? The boy didn't confirm anything, just chuckled slyly. Marvel at the boy, thinking, looks like it's doomed. Really cute. Perhaps that guy's younger brother? He stretched his hand to pat the boy on the head. It's not safe here, so try to get along with the grown-ups. Without allowing himself to be patted on the head, the boy quickly ran away from the robber. Eric Buvs Divavani Yogo Diami. What? From the lewd bastard. Why is it flowing through me? I can't do anything nasty for now. Why didn't they tell the stink that this little bastard was here? Eric, in his thoughts, had already come up with a cunning plan. About an hour, Charlotte and Dietrich entered the new room. System window. Dietrich Zyschoff in the artist's mastermind. Charlotte immediately noticed the acrid smell of oil and covered her nose. The whole room was filled with this strong smell. She wanted to see that everything was normal with Dietrich. Is everything okay with him? System window. Vitality 72. Strength 40. The vibrancy of the 3 rubles has subsided. Just to think so, after inhaling the smell of oily farbs in the stove for a long time, I was exhausted by gas. You can't stay here for too long. System window. Dietrich received a share of the goods. Let's see what's there. Dietrich was shocked when he asked, where are you wondering? The treasure is in my hands. Charlotte understood her mercy. I went to the next one to read it all at once. Shall we marvel at once? When she approached, she covered her mouth with wrapped. She was shaking and writhing. What is it? Do I smell bad? Why did you feel bad about this rapture? After getting used to the smell for 3 minutes, they quickly began to sing in another way. No, what are you doing? Everything is wrong, as you thought. It's a pleasant aroma. And my soul became a little calmer. The speakers whose eyes shone with happiness. Be careful not to give words the wrong meaning. I didn't mean anything like that. Garazed. In any situation. I'm happy that you're comfortable. So can I go for another 3? Let's take a look. Still, the artist was unable to make the lady laugh. Let's go back to the story of the artist. The artist failed to make the lady laugh. Vin asked to paint a picture for her. Vona said, dissatisfied, I thought that you would make me laugh. But in this case, you are in no way different from others. The artist tries to explain. I'm not going to paint your portrait. I will paint a picture as the lady wishes, so that I paint. The lady's eyes sparkled when she sensed the artist's words. Really? So let's get what we can get. Brilliant speech suits me. Paint a brilliant picture. It is bound to shine on the sky, so that it hurts your eyes. Other artists, sensing these words, began to whisper, and a deep breath could be heard through them. But only one calmly said, Garazed. I will definitely paint a picture, because the lady so badly wants to pamper her eyes. I will paint a brilliant picture. After they finished reading the book, Charlotte glanced at the picture in front of them. Is this a brilliant picture? Aren't you supposed to shine at all? The picture depicted how the robbers dismantled the plan. Let's say it inadvertently. Just looking at her will make you scared. The Stinks continued to chew on the picture in order to understand it. System window, Charlotte's garden. Punish Dietrich. Don't let him leave this room until you can reach him, Vona thought. Why didn't the axis appear? Tilka thought that everything would work out between us. Dietrich looked surprised. Your eye color has changed again to red. Vaughn turned around and calmly asked, Really? Vin Vidpov. If you think so, then every time, when your eyes turned red, You behaved wonderfully, he said with horror. You became a completely different person, as if you always wanted to harm me and to show me off. Readily, he shook his hand and asked, "What do you want to earn with me now?" Vaughn asked. "Are you going to be angry with me? How will it happen again?" She wanted to see his reaction. Having glanced over there, she was amazed at the Bachanim. "It's amazing why he's laughing," Vin spoke with a chuckle. "Still, I'm right. It's not too much of a curse for just a few mothers." Having thought over his theory, he decided to settle for a forgery. "I'm fine." Vaughn was shocked. "What? Do you think you're okay?" "South. I think that if you don't waste money, everything will still be fine. It became so easy for me as soon as I knew the loss of the puzzle." Vona thought. "What should I say? Already relieved of the gas? Does this mean that if I tell you not to go out, you won't come out?" He said with passion. "It's simple. I won't see it." Dietrich was proud of himself. I marvel at his laugh, and I'm completely in agreement. Charlotte sat down exhaustedly on the pretense of whiteness. He said that everything was fine with him. Let's just marvel at the picture. They sat and marveled at the picture, and they started rapping. "What do you think about her?" Vin Vidpov. Similar to the style of Santorini. Vaughn overfed it. Santorini? Vin Vidpov. One of 3 famous artists. They lived decades ago. In his old age, his reputation was ruined. He had to go through important times. Vaughn asked. "Why so?" Vin Vidpov. "The problem is in the picture of his teaching, and the punishment for blasphemy. If you think about it, this is the picture and the clothes. Everything reflects the fashions of past centuries." Vona thought. "New horizons are broad. Look, this picture is not Santorini. This symbol V melodiously could be Valak, who peed himself in the lady's shirt." She asked for it. Why shouldn't the picture shine? After hearing Charlotte's words, Dietrich was respectfully amazed at the picture and lost in thought. Having realized it, he jumped up sharply. "Tempera! An oil painting will not shine unless it is coated with resin oils. Well, I know what kind of blisk they talk about in Shdenik. When they reached the table, there were cut out butter. Find out the oils your resin needs and start applying them to the painting using an oil brush. After applying resin oil to the painting, it began to shine in the sun." System window. Dietrich sipped off the powder. Marvel at the picture and notice that a lot of powder has fallen in. You should calmly choose from the excuses. Having collected the powder from the pods, the 3 children came up to Charlotte, and the little girls sat in a row behind her. Vona glanced at Nyogo. Vaughn asked with joy, "What? Why are you telling me again? You are dissatisfied with your opinion. You yourself said not to go out. This is for every reason. It will be worse, since I will not waste, as you say, and I will force you with blood again, like last time." Vona thought. "I'm sorry for everything. So be it, as soon as I waive the fine again. You won't go out until this time until I tell you?" Looking at the picture of the widows. "Yes, that's exactly how I'll earn it." It was clear from his appearance that he was feeling bad. Charlotte asked. "Dietrich, I think these 3 rubles are wonderful today," Vin asked in shock. "Really?" Thinking about Dietrich's childhood. This story spanned at least 20 years. Although the boy is happy with the youth, he remembers everything. The day when his irritated and cruel fathers were especially kind. "Dietrich, do you know what name you wear?" He marveled at the fathers with great delight. "This is the name of a hero. What a milestone in the Great War hundreds of years ago. Isn't it a miracle? That's why you are to blame for this. Live well wisely?" Having said this, the stinks left under the temple, so Dietrich was deprived of living in the temple. Marveling at the large number of children who lived in the church, the boy thought about how to behave. "If I won't be any better, I won't stink. Throw me away. How can I be inspired to tell you what to do with me?" The boy steadfastly endured all the difficulties on his way. "The brand, as if it baked my living flesh, baked my super naughtiness. If you want to become visible, reach such heights that no one will be able to bump into you." The guy was wondering what he could do to secure your living, and soon he will return with a marvelous trophy. Vin brought the head of the enemy to the emperor. Everyone praised him. An extraordinary genius, like no other in the empire. A hero of this century who has been reborn. They said that with him, the empire would be safe and would bring peace to this land. I can feel such loud screams in my thoughts. I would like to die for the glory of the empire. It was an honor for the lyric to devote himself to his father's life, and I strongly believe that this is the case. So I again bravely went to the battlefield for my father's cause. Once upon a time, I held a sword in my hands since childhood. Having killed a young soldier, it was good not to kill him. It was like killing a soldier who rushed in, carrying his dying comrade on his back. Having killed them, looking at your sword, having fought so many in the war, we began to think, why am I rightly timid? Why am I really telling the truth? He was covered in blood and marveled with fear at his extremity. His psyche began to wobble at the sight of blood. He took his head off, and there was a picture in front of him. Everything is covered in blood. There are a lot of corpses of people who can no longer be turned back. Seeing this bloody picture, the hands that had been holding the sword tightly began to tremble violently. Not in the mind of him. We finally fell to our knees with our thoughts. These are not the ones I want. I just want to get up higher so that they don't choke me. What the hell am I hoping for? So that by killing people, I can rise up, and I will become someone who does not want to leave. Realizing that we couldn't go on like this, the young man dug up the place, stained it with the blood of the quiet ones, and drove it in with his own hands. Having dug a deep hole and buried all my pain there, I try to rid myself of filthy thoughts. Unbeknownst to him, the wall that had been so strong in his emotions had cracked and began to collapse. The man, having returned from the battlefield, was no longer an important hero for others, but only a fool and a worthless burden. The man suddenly began to think about what he really wanted, and I realized that I feel sorry for the death of only the one who has become a fool. Even though you don't need to be so famous, you need to be praised in front of others. We just want to be free from all battles to the death. Ale, and deciding to become free, was not quite the right choice for him. Aji took away freedom from the Bajan. Once again, I have fallen into the mouth of the damned Lindbergh, from whom we cannot leave without knowing the chamber of truth. Turning to reality. Charlotte praised Dietrich, even without recognizing her for a long time. Dietrich! Yomu was getting worse and worse. Vaughn squealed. Are you okay? You've already got the call for a cold drink. Is your head spinning? Might as well, why don't you batchish now? Dietrich raised his head in surprise. Having raised his head completely, he burned out and swayed. And it's true, I still study, Vaughn asked. What are you doing? Vin Vidpov. Oh, so rich. We found hundreds of dead bodies that hung on the stele. People were killed by him. Shaking your hand in fear, you heard the news about your passing. If it's been a long time since I've reached a lot, and wondering how high I can rise, it seemed to me that I was closest to the top, below other people. Even if I thought so, in reality, I wouldn't be able to get up. Charlotte asked with great vigor. Why didn't you get up? Vin explained. Everything collapsed like brushes in a domino. People for people, and everything collapsed. Perhaps, why am I just a brush? Kim, am I, boo? I can't understand it myself. Charlotte realized how important it was for him to tell her, so she told him, Dietrich, as it is important to you, I can tell you until you can easily talk to me on this topic. Vin bovs devovani, and with all the strength I have left, I want to look at her to know how her eyes have changed. Now, what color are her eyes? The eyes that had been closed until now could clear up a little, and their bright blue eyes grew larger and marveled at him. She looked at him calmly and calmly. You felt lighter in your soul, even though Charlotte was still kind. Having chanted to himself that everything was normal, he decided to lay his head on her shoulder, showing himself weak in front of her. He will immediately rush towards her. Charlotte! Vaughn was shocked. So? Vin said. I just wanted to call you once. For the coming day. Calls of the great Lord Lindbergh. It was a wonderful sleepy day. The little birds were sleeping. The sun was shining. Dietrich woke up after an important experiment in the artist's room. When Charlotte suffered the loss of her knowledge, having woken up, my head hurt badly, and I remembered what I had done yesterday. He covered his accusation with his thoughts with his hand. What the hell am I doing? Why did I act like this yesterday, dude? Vin praised for those, as if leading himself. How can I now marvel at Charlotte's eyes? The doors burst open, and Dietrich immediately asked, Charlotte! Tse Zaishow, skvilovani Felix. He became more and more furious. Pan Dietrich, Can I unnecessarily dismiss you? Dietrich began to straighten his clothes and asked, What happened? Felix Vidpoviv. I have something to say. I became more greedy. He turned his face away and covered his mouth. Dietrich said politely, Pan Felix, everything is fine. So you can speak calmly. Felix calmed down a little and began speaking. Perhaps you won't believe me. Did you and Mrs. Charlotte leave the room at the same time last night? Eric said that he would help her, but after that, they didn't bother him. Dietrich quickly ran away to find out what had happened. We immediately sensed a wonderful sound. Let us run around to have a look and enjoy there. Mrs. Charlotte is bloodied with a saber lamp, stained with blood, in her hands. Dietrich was shocked, having a bit more. Charlotte, feeling the sound of the doors opening, turned around and called him out. I was shocked and furious. Dietrich? In case of disorder, we need help and want to power up. What kind of guy are you robbing? Charlotte interrupted Yogo. I didn't drive it in. Vona stood up willingly, under the pretense of appearing calm. I didn't hit the truth. Their clothes and rivers were in blazing blood. Dietrich was wary and thinking. His eyes are blue in color. Vona calmly asked Yogo, Don't you believe me? You are wary. I don't trust it, Vaughn said, writhing her hands. Honestly, I wouldn't trust you either. Alishcho Robiti? At this rate, I'll become a villain. I just came for the ring, but I couldn't find it. Vin asked in shock. Have you searched the dead body of Pan Eric? Vaughn said calmly. So, there's nothing else. Why bother with this corpse now? Importantly, I saw there. Dietrich didn't deserve it because she was talking about a dead man. Having come to terms with her calm look, he decided to throw up his pride and say, It's our fault to seize the corpse. Charlotte was alarmed as the situation grew worse. Vona thought. It rose a lot. How much has it jumped, damn it? System window, Beaujeville 27%. I felt sick at the sight of blood. That's a stupid Yogo. Finish it, Dietrich. I won't ask you for this. You should become a coward when you see a corpse. Here are some thoughts. As soon as you grow up, you will only be dragging the corpse of your god. He came up singing, I'm not afraid. You will go to Eric's corpse and begin to pick up his bloodied body. Charlotte was very upset. Dietrich. Vin pulled the corpse by saying, I'll make the yoga myself, Vona said in a jabbering voice. It's not necessary. You hate it just the same. I asked her in an explanatory manner. Without saying that I trust you? Feeling these words, Charlotte stammered. Vin continued, More precisely, I trust you with your dark eyes. So let's go change into clean clothes. I'll figure it all out and be on my way right away. Charlotte was even more shocked and could hardly handle him. Gerazed. After hanging out with Dietrich, Charlotte began to leave the room. As she walked, she turned back to look at him. Vaughn praised him, and even through this situation, he could fall into despair and even more ill will. A year has passed. Charlotte took all the blood out of herself and changed into a new, clean outfit to remove suspicion from herself. While Charlotte was straightening her clothes at the door, Dietrich knocked, who had already taken Eric's corpse. Vona said, Come in! System window, Beaujeville 29%. Dietrich entered the room, closing the doors behind them. It still rose. When you entered the room, you asked seriously, Now tell me what really happened there. Charlotte walked up to the bed and sat down, looked at him with a calm expression and said, Gerazed, I'll explain. Yesterday, when we left the room at the same time, I took you to bed so that you could get some sleep. Guess me first. If I helped you lie down, then you begged me. Charlotte, don't go, don't leave me alone, Vona thought. It's definitely not true to reason. And I only helped to calm you down, so that you could fall asleep. Come on, Dietrich. When you found yourself calm and fast asleep, I left your room. Pan Eric called to me, Lady Charlotte, so Axis de Viboul. They chuckled slyly and continued speaking. I know something here. Can I show you? Charlotte was dissatisfied with his arrival. This expensive departure came before me? How far is it to speech? System window. Enchantment failed. An hour before the coming 59th Phelan. About 10% success rate. Damn hundreds. Eric quickly reached into his pocket and took out the powder. Vin asked, Is it yours? You were ruined on the way to the room. Charlotte quickly rushed to take Dietrich's powder with words, Rotate! When did you pick him? At the moment when Charlotte wanted to pick up the powder, Eric grabbed her hand and spoke. Have fun with me. Without checking out this type, you pull it along with you. She said that she was trying to Virvatitia. What are you doing? Let go. They seemed to be welcome in the warehouse space. You are the most beautiful girl with ears that I cherish for my life. They walked into the room, closed the doors, and pressed them tightly against the wall, holding them by the hands so that they wouldn't worry. He shook her hands tightly and said, That's why, at the first meeting, I thought that you were an aristocrat. Place gentle hands on you. She grew up in comfort. Are you perhaps the mistress of an aristocrat? There's a baby in the bag. Maybe it's yours, Vona thought. Ditina? What are you talking about? Vin continued to speak. Come on, cry and bless me. And maybe I'll have mercy on you 3 times. Vaughn said this angrily. Leave me alone. And with all her might, she hit him on the nose. I haven't experienced anything like this. In intense pain, Eric fell to the ground and clasped his hands behind his leg. He screamed in intense pain. Divine girl! You need to hit it as follows so that you get there. I was thinking about wondering, fool. I still can't die to say that I greatly admire him. Eric angrily attacked Charlotte like a rat. As soon as he touched her, vines began to grow from the ground and wrap around his body, lifting him up in the wind. Eric was in great shock. What's this? Why is he pushing me so hard? The vines cursed at Charlotte in front of Eric. Tai! Nasty girl. Charlotte just calmly watched over him and thought, wow, I can do this with my eyes. As soon as there were threats for Charlotte in the game, Maytok himself faced them. He just screamed. Rant! The devil is here. Before speaking, what is the connection like this? How can I get the ring and the powder? Fine, do you want me? Vona let him go. Vona was shocked. Was it true? Eric, who fell on the pretext and became very angry, broke his nose. He began to threaten her. Tai! I'll hit you! He quickly became excited and wanted to attack her. Vona took the candlestick in her hands, and when he came closer to attack him, she quickly hit him in the chin with a candlestick. Dietrich interrupted Charlotte's story and asked, Do you think they hit him with a candlestick? How far? Why shouldn't they die? Vaughn confirmed. Singingly, Felix and Hesta sensed the Gurkit and came running. Of course I got involved. I'm not surprised that I'm playing against 3. Then I decided to quickly rush out and wait for Eric to be alone, or else he would already be dead when I arrived. That's all. Dietrich was shocked. You say that Mr. Eric did this to you? Vaughn guessed and began to take out the powder. I made a fortune. Treme! You tried so hard to get rid of him. I'm so lucky that I know the powder, right? Vaughn gave me the powder. Dietrich took him in his hands and asked, Did you search the corpse for me? Vaughn sang loudly. That's all true. Charlotte covered her mouth and sighed. Is everything good now? You really can't help me then. Dietrich did not know what was on his mind. He looked at her and said, Just say it like that. Exhausted, Charlotte laid her head on Dietrich's shoulder and said, Yes, Diakuyu, you will be in a good place. Having become confused, he said. I don't want to be bullied for something like that, Vaughn asked. Did you ask me to say something like that? Realizing that he had said this in truth, he said with a gentle smile. And to be honest, I asked for it myself. Charlotte glanced sadly at Dietrich. Over the past few days, she has experienced a lot of unpleasant things and is exhausted. Vaughn began to sleep on his shoulder with thoughts. Today is a very important day. System window. The plant has failed. Charlotte is given a new home. Eric will be driven in, find the correct driver, and find the ruined ring. By this time, the robbers had realized that Eric was missing, and they were looking for him all over the place. Felix the Grizz's legs are wriggling. Ramp into the room of the Zeish of Hest. Felix quickly stood up and asked him, Znaishov Eric? Hesta Shvilovano Vidpov. Number. Felix got angry and started screaming, From Daddy! Where can this leave go? Hesta narrowed his eyes at his scream. Felix was very upset that the plan had failed. Boy, things are taking a strange turn. This was not in the plans. In the first place, Eric is guilty of falling into a meeting in front of a man. It was necessary to boil them. I proponova Yumu plan, after which we vicarize the ring, so that whoever suffers for them will take your place. Alvin didn't hear. I was in a relationship with that girl, so I gave them an hour alone to have fun. Before I went into the room. Pobachev, not Eric. Lady Charlotte and Mr. Dietrich, were you together? Once there was shock. Everything came out unexpectedly. Felix said everything after thinking it over. These departures were definitely made with Eric. Hesta asked. Felix, what should we do? Felix chuckled slyly and confirmed. To finish playing and playing with them, you just need to kill these two and fast for Eric. Tomorrow in the backpack, we will open the man's urine. If you become weak because of this, then we will deal with the two of you. A few hours have passed since Dietrich's gates were cut off by robbers. He was still normal and killed monsters. Felix walked behind Dietrich and sensed the right moment when the door opened. This type is a true monster. Raptum Dietrich started coughing up blood. Felix thought, has a deadly root been discovered? What kind of durability does this have? Still, he doesn't look like a typical villager. Coming to a new point, having said. Pan Dietrich sees the axis. I need to tell you something, Dietrich asked. What happened? Felix said. There's a lot of excitement about today's snack. Having discolored all the dishes you used for painting, Lady Charlotte is in charge of the care. Is it possible to bleed through you? Dietrich gently blocked his words. Felix asked in shock. What? Vin survived. This is not Lady Charlotte, Felix asked. Yak axis? So you were studying? I noticed that after eating, she went with Hesta. That's why I don't understand them, Dietrich asked. Why didn't the stink show up? Felix confirmed. South. Just to think, the stinks went in that direction. Vin showed and Dietrich quickly escaped. That girl definitely suits you. Those who will be left alone with Hesta Yogovilyuya. It's so fast to run. I want to talk about it Yogovira's denunciation. Tim, what happened in Charlotte? Vaughn came to Hesti, but if she did, she painted the greedy picture. What do I call this? The charred body of Hesti lay in front of her. You clicked, so I came, and now lie dead. Vaughn was surprised at the new one, and noticed that there was a scrounger in the new one. How do they know everything every time? Charlotte sat down to pick up her money and thought, there is no pasture in this room, but it still dies. Charlotte took a piece of the scavenger from Hesti's body as the rapt began to approach her. System window. The effect of the steel mentality. Charlotte became wary and turned around. There is someone else in the room besides me. Charlotte watched warily in the dark and began to make excuses. She asked out, Who's there? Did you drive Hesta? She walked up to the door and locked it, without looking at him. Having begun to emerge from the dark, that same little boy, named Eric, emerges. Will you burn a ring of fire alive? Surprised at the situation in the dark, she was able to mark her small legs. What? Small feet? Who can you do? Malyuk? Standing in front of her was a savage boy who didn't know how to get angry with her, just standing and marveling at her. Charlotte asked, What ring and earrings? The boy immediately realized that, and with a shove, he began to rush out of the room. Check! Stop! Vona rushed to catch up with him, but if she left the room, he would no longer be there. Where are you going? Perhaps this little guy killed Eric. If this is so, then I hope to catch it as quickly as possible. Not a lot of time was wasted. Raptum at this moment, Dietrich arrived. What are you doing there? Charlotte furiously furious at the new respect. Vona looked at him and thought, From my dear, why exactly at this moment? Dietrich asked. Why are you standing there? Charlotte, trying to keep Hesti's death a secret, closed the door with herself and left. Just like that. 3 times they realized her behavior and began to approach her closer to her. Can I open the doors? Vaughn, noticing that he was getting closer, began to approach him. Vaughn powered Yogo. Dietrich, have you already eaten? Not hungry? Maybe we'll go and eat 3 rubles. Dietrich was getting closer and closer to her. She didn't know what he was doing. Dietrich stammered and said, Having broken through the cold weather, is everything okay with you? 1. Really? I sing a lot. Dietrich carefully pushed her out of the door and said, Viebachta, but I am guilty of looking into the middle, Vona said. Check it. Dietrich opened the door of the room wide and rubbed Hesti's charred body. Charlotte didn't want it to happen. Vin asked, Why is Pan Hesta in such a position? Vona thought. Baby, anyone will think what I've earned. Cream of that. This percentage of Godville has risen again. System window, Bojeville 31%. Vin asked. Tse robili czerwonuka vi? Charlotte complimented him on his behalf. Bojeville was over 30%. Now there will be problems with moral principles. Dietrich, I didn't hit it. She herself babbled yoga. Vin interrupted. Charlotte, couldn't you just tell the truth? The stinks hung over you. They were driven through them. I would have tried to make you understand, but you hadn't told the truth. No, it's all meaningless. Having cleaned up Eric's corpse, I became a participant in the crime, so there is no way back. Charlotte Zupanila Yogo. When I entered the room, it would have been. Believe me, besides us, there is one more person in this world, which is what I'm learning first, Vin asked. Toady Devin? Charlotte turned around and spoke. Whoops, now he's already stiffened up. Thank you for everything, please go there. Dietrich could no longer hear her beacon, and no longer hear her. Finish it. Vaughn shook violently and glanced at him. What? We'll spoil it by saying, Charlotte, I'm coming to call you. Thank you, don't let me doubt you even more. Charlotte realized that she couldn't calm him down simply with words, or tell him what was true. Vona guessed behind the drawer's side what she had found out at Hesty's, and began to leave to give up. Vona became furious. I'll give it to you. Vona held out a piece of paper and said, I don't even need this part of the food. I just wanted to help you. Dietrich took the piece of paper in his hand and looked at him. Charlotte decided to leave him alone so as not to embarrass the situation. Dietrich began to be surprised by the swindler. She walked down the corridor, confused, and even couldn't cross. We find ourselves in an endless flood, with no way out. Liar and deceit. Like squirrels in a wheel, we keep spinning and spinning. Is there really no option to get out of the crowd? Thoughtful like a cliché? It turned out to be systemically wrong. Dietrich took away part of the Shodenik. The place is transferred to Charlotte. The history of this part began with a few words about the painting. In what place should this picture shine? Lady ignored her. Other masters also criticized him. You display for a brilliant picture those that you have painted. He's a deceiver, the lady asked mockingly. Valak, are you ready to accept punishment for those who did not take the punishment? Olivin was not afraid. Without losing respect for the lady's mocking words, he calmly walked, took his picture, and said, Bye-bye. The artist stood up, holding his painting high, and in the bright sun, it began to shine brightly. Through this marvelous view, other artists gathered in front of the painting. Lord, the picture really shines brightly. Everyone started asking him, What kind of materials did you use as a victor? Did you say that Santorini was your teacher? Marveling at the artists who had always called Valak, and now praising him, Leda began to laugh loudly. Seeing the lady's deep laughter, everyone who was in that room turned to look at her and cheered. The lady laughed more brightly, and the artist, who made her laugh, won the bet. You will be happy for making her laugh. Having won the bet, Valak began to paint a portrait of Lady, and she laughed broadly at you. The portrait of the Bischof is wonderful. Dietrich, having finished reading the story, was written in Shodenik. The colors started to click, and they were victorious. Brilliant colors? He looked around and thought, everything was on fire, so I don't think anything could have survived in such a fire. Raptum, looking around the burnt room, noticed something more wonderful. Why was only that wall left undamaged? I marveled and thought, surely this wall has not been damaged, because behind it there are those that I need. Dietrich began to approach those walls to roll over. It was said that the picture shone when the light hit it. Like that wall is the same. The curtains are opened. This is what may be happening with her in sleepy exchanges, as I have correctly guessed. When the curtains were opened, the wall began to fade, and shiny doors appeared on it. Did doors appear from the walls? The doors began to open wide in front of Dietrich, asking him to enter the middle of the room. Dietrich decided to accept the requested room without hesitation and go into the middle to find out what was hidden in it. Whenever he entered the room, in front of him stood that same brilliant picture of Valak from the ice maker. The picture shone brightly amid the sleepy changes. Dietrich thought with amusement. Painting? I immediately noted the shady man. He took it in his hands and began to read. The story began with, Today, in the morning, the shirts are standing upright. All because of those who called Valek's painting an image of the temple. I Palladini was taken away. The servant brought all the pictures. As Valek painted, she burned her garden. Lady screamed loudly. Poor lady, she really deserves this artist. After the portrait, the lady often laughed, starting to look at the new painting. You just can't get any more than that. A.J. Meister, having formed a temple, will be erased from the face of the earth. Now you won't lose a single picture. When Dietrich finished reading the story of the scavenger, skeletons with swords appeared in a rush, approaching him. One of the skeletons wanted to inevitably hit Dietrich from behind. Otherwise, he felt unsafe in the back and suddenly died. Fighting off the rapt attack of the skeleton, Dietrich thought with amazement. If he had time to come here, the devil take it? The skeleton continued to put pressure on Dietrich, like a rapt attack on the painting. After thinking, are you aiming at the picture? The skeleton launched an attack and wanted to take the painting, but Dietrich quickly took the painting into the hands of the skeleton. This monster kidnaps her. Then she can become an important hint. Having taken the picture, they wanted to enter the skeleton. If you open the doors, you will be greeted with an unpleasant shock when you walk out the door. Yogo, having broken through the cold water in front of him. It's impossible. Why are there so many skeletons here? In front of him stood hundreds of armored skeletons, ready to attack him. The skeletons stormed towards Dietrich, trying to take the painting. He fought diligently against them with his sword. 3 breaths of breath broke out in the face of a great influx of skeletons that needed to be fought off. I thought, does Charlotte? No, I first need to know that man, Felix. Charlotte is in danger of monsters, and I am to blame for that. The skeleton rapped, sharply attacking Yogo. Dietrich was unable to repel his attack, and the monster cut his chest. After this, Dietrich, his thoughts faded. Why am I obliged to help that man? What will happen to me? Can I die by fighting Yogo? The picture is that Dietrich began to release a dark aura, enveloping him in bad thoughts. Is it possible to try and get out of this damn place? There is no way to get married. Is it better to just die here? Charlotte rushed into the room, bringing with her a large bag of hedgehogs. The skeletons, which were aimed at Dietrich, began to show respect to Charlotte, who brought the great bag of hedgehogs. Vaughn angrily carried this important bag even before the monsters, and said, squeezing it tightly, "These are nasty monsters. Pour it in." There was a liquid hanging from the big bag. A large amount of food fell to the ground. The skeletons quickly rushed after the hedgehog, without any regard for Charlotte. At that hour, she ran to help Dietrich. Vaughn started clicking Yogo. Dietrich! Dietrich, do you hear me? You can't smell me from Deadco. The picture is fading. Infected products captured their respect, but this will never be lost. If so, I hope they will wake up these skeletons. Charlotte wanted to make quick work of it, but nothing came of it. System window, it is impossible to speed up the process. Monster Yakimvi cannot keruvati. The skeletons quietly chewed their food. Vona thought, how fruitless is the richness. Baby, why bother me? Vona looked at the damned picture and thought, to be honest, the problem is in this picture. I'm beating Dietrich from the hands. It turned out to be systemically wrong. Let's get ready. If Charlotte touches the painting, there will be a fine. Having read about the fine, Charlotte became very thoughtful and wanted to see how the skeletons were there, which would still be occupied. The stinks continued to be chewed by the food products, and the respect was not extinguished. The products have become muddy, singing in the busyness of the monsters. She wandered around for a long time. What is the best way to earn money by displaying pictures? Vaughn got rid of all her doubts and decided to take the painting to the new one. Charlotte willingly raised her hand to the painting. I pulled it from Dietrich's hands. When the picture left your hands, you quickly came and took a deep breath. He began to look at everything in shock, without understanding what had happened. What? Where did all the monsters go? Raptum Dietrich felt the whiteness of his legs and looked at him. He lowered his gaze and looked at Charlotte without a clue. Vin, shouted ye. Charlotte? But she didn't agree. She was covered in blood and was touching the picture. The skeletons at that hour finished all the food and showed their respect to them. Dietrich was worried about Charlotte's camp. System window. If Charlotte touches the painting, there will be a fine. Charlotte got angry. Vaughn said her thoughts. It's a wonderful day. Lady was walking outside her chamber. and the chamber was energized with rapt. Tell me honestly, lady, is this picture beautiful? The lady looked at the picture of the dormouse and was amazed how it shone brightly in the sun. The ladies adjusted their drops with a chuckle from the widow. Ugly. What's all the fuss about a picture like this? Vona marveled at the picture and at the field with dormouse, and said, the picture is not at all similar to the other region. The chamber came closer to the ice and looked at the edge. Axis yak? Still, it seems to me that the stench is similar. Even in my eyes, both of them look so beautiful. The Stinks marveled at the wondrous field of dormouse as it shone in the sun. System window. Zlitia stumbled. Dietrich started to wake up Charlotte. Come to you, please take it easy. Charlotte! Prishov was thinking about it. I've lost my temper again. Why is it so warm? Dietrich holds her hand. With her eyes wide open, she looked at Dietrich, who, writhingly, grabbed her hand and almost cried. Marveling at her, Vaughn let herself down, hugging him by the hand, and began to marvel at him in astonishment. Did you bring me here? She was thinking about him with a gentle laugh. Vin is kind-hearted. If you can't trust me, then you can't boast. I'll die no matter what. Look at the relief at what I saw. Dietrich felt lighter in his soul that she had come to you. Vaughn decided to joke with him. Dietrich, are you crying? He got very cold and let go, crossing his hand. It's a lie. You're really crying. Vaughn lowered her forehead to his cheeks. You've run out of traces of tears here, Dietrich asked. Am I really crying? I was very embarrassed that Charlotte spent her money through him. Charlotte looked at him and became wiser. The reason why I have so much confidence in Dietrich, in what I was looking for in human warmth. It would have been a long time before I had sunk into this sack. I was left with a wide variety of emotions, as the mother began to forget after being plunged into darkness for a long time. Having thought it all over, she decided to calm him down and say it. Don't boast, you're just hot, Dietrich. 3 rubles, taking a closer look. Vona opened a strong cut on her breasts and sank into her wriggling. Check it. Why are you so badly injured? Raptum started thinking. What do you think? What kind of exposure is this hotter? Dietrich Vidpov. Nothing special. I'm fine. Charlotte sharply let down and said angry. No, you're not okay. Check here, I'll bring you some. Dietrich hugged her, took her hand and said coaxingly. Don't go. The ringing is already not safe, Vaughn said calmly. Call quietly, so all is well. Vin reconvert. That's why I got caught when I took you away, Vaughn confirmed. In any case, the monsters cannot touch me. Besides, Felix is called, and you think you're just hanging around here? Raptum Dietrich stood up angrily and shouted, Felix! You need to know him! Charlotte was already angry at Yogo, naked at me. Vaughn began to speak and calm him down. Dietrich, calm down. If you immediately find yourself in such a camp, there will be problems. How are you supposed to know which person will hurt you more? Why don't you trust me? Dietrich locked up. It's not like that. I just admire you so much, Charlotte. Vaughn was quite shocked that he was praising her so much. Having realized his behavior, she stopped nagging him and just said, I won't die, Dietrich. I'll be back soon. And just steal this painting for an hour. Vona pointed her finger at her and added, If possible, do not push it. Garazed? Dietrich watched her for a while and listened loudly to her. Vona thought, if we don't take away that picture, then everything will come to an end. System window. The main event of The Other on Top begins from the moment the picture is found. Wash yourself for 3 years. It doesn't matter if you can only overcome the monsters. But this damn picture put a curse on the ruler. Besides, another problem is that there is one more picture. She went up to the room and greeted the busy skeletons. It's good to go. These monsters were warriors, dying of hunger, like the goodness that the stench was so buried. I still have to know Felix in the painting. Charlotte quickly ran along the corridor in Vogue, following the map. As soon as Dietrich takes over the picture, then God knows. But if you give one to Felix, then everything will be fine. Charlotte looked around in her whispers, as if she were shouting, Mrs. Charlotte? Vin stood looking at the picture. Vaughn asked, Mr. Felix, you are fine. Has anything happened to you? Before speaking, do you have a painting in your hands? Vin Vidpov. Kia? It occurred to me that if I sold it, I would earn some pennies and take it with me. Before speaking, it's no good for me to Scott. Why are you still okay? Vin became very angry and started to come closer, pointing his finger at her. If you were innocent of dying, being torn into pieces, why would you want to seriously spoil yourself with a couple of brushes? Vona thought. Are you ready to show your true nature? Vin asked Yi. What about Hesta? Vaughn thought excitedly. Why is it okay not to be amazed at those who are trimming the picture? Varto skoristatis sim. The painting lost 1 year. Charlotte saw everything going on as bad and hopeless. I don't understand what you're talking about, Mr. Felix. Felix got very angry and said, squeezing the picture, Lady, why am I not a kind person? Let me ask again, what happened to them? I don't know either. 2 of them disappeared together. Vin shouted interruptively. Do you think I will believe in such a lighthouse? It was time for her to say it. Garazed, I'll tell you. In truth, I came here, being careful that Mr. Felix would be shocked. They were attacked by monsters, and both of them died. Felix was greatly shocked and too full of questions. What are you saying? Then he abruptly grabbed his head and began to laugh deeply. So, does this mean that Eric and Hesta are dead? What do you want to tell me? He suddenly attacked her and grabbed her by the hair. This girl is making fun of me. Did you think that I would believe in this? You stupid girl. Were you the only one who killed them? Who is this guy? I'll kill you two, Vona screamed. More painful. Let go. Shut up and follow. Raptum Charlotte's face changed and she said, Lock the chains. What will you do if monsters come here? You stupid girl, have you finally lost yourself to fear? Vin chuckled slyly and said, I'm not going to die. And I continued to laugh. Charlotte was shocked. What do you care about? He turned it and said, It's coming, just like that. I've been kidding you for so long. Why are you only coming at once? Dietrich began to think that Felix was worried about her, and became very angry. Vin shouted angrily, What are you doing with Charlotte? Those violet eyes stared fiercely at Felix, guessing the moment until then. Dietrich audibly checked Charlotte and thoughtfully marveled at the picture of how she might be kidnapped. Vaughn tried to steal the painting, but she was coughing up blood and felt the unbearable pain just to steal it. This means, after all, in this picture, there is something special that needs to be protected from those terrible monsters. I spent the whole hour marveling at her and thinking, in my opinion, this picture is simply beautiful, and nothing more. Wow, Charlotte is beautiful. In my memory, there was a moment when she was staring at him in her eyes. Knowing that moment of Dietrich's exposure, one suddenly thought that the beauty of the painting was similar to her beauty. Dietrich sharply accepted the pretexts, and even I felt disgraceful. How can I think about this at such an important moment? Having seen it with importance, I put my head to my head and tried to get my thoughts in order. What am I going to do now? 3 calmed down and thought, why hasn't Charlotte turned around yet? Could it be that something happened to her due to the age? You listened to the songs on these searches. Did you tell me not to go out? Otherwise we'll waste our money and won't be able to turn around? Turning around until you hit them. Felix Vidpoviv. What am I robbing? From now on I want to have fun. Dietrich began to use his words. Why are you so timid, Mr. Felix? Let Lady Charlotte go, Felix said threateningly. Why don't I want to? Vona thought. I told Dietrich to steal the painting. What about the Vishovs? Dietrich could no longer tolerate his misery over her. And, having drawn his sword, the situation could become worse. Toady and I will not be left out. Felix was in awe of this situation, and even if Eric was in the ring, he wouldn't get hurt. Charlotte glanced at Felix, who continued to chuckle slyly. Vona thought, why should you laugh? If you think so much about my words that monsters will come and say that you won't die. Having said that, is it really a ring? Dietrich attacked Felix and wanted to kill him. Dietrich, stop! Al was suddenly unable to stop. Dietrich cut his hand with his sword, but the cut spread to him. I felt a strong pain and was in shock. Coldpid having broken through Yogo. Why did you survive the injury? Felix looked pleased with himself and laughed. Vin shouted joyfully, I told you, I won't die. Perhaps will you try to wave your beautiful sword again? Charlotte asked Yogo in shock. Did you not take away your ring? Felix removed the ring and asked, So, Eric's ring. Vaughn fed this Nova. So did you kill Eric? Vin locked himself in shock. Why are you carrying the lighthouse? How could I have killed him? Vaughn asked. How did that appear in you? I will put on the ring and say, I picked it up and everything lay flat on the floor. Vona thought about her words. You can't help but pick it up? The ring is definitely not enough on Eric's body. Felix decided to morally finish off Dietrich by saying, Before the truth was spoken, I did not enter the villages because of the robbers. Charlotte wanted to catch up with her. Baby, no! Don't you dare! Dietrich, I'm fine. I need to go back to the room. I am a robber who killed everyone in the village of Owen. Felix, in ecstasy, uttered these words in order to finish him off morally. System window. Beaujeville 13%. Seemingly, Dietrich began to fall into despair and asked him, What did you say? Felix repeated, Don't you feel it? I say I'm a robber. Those villagers were so loud that I killed them all. Beaujeville 14%? Vin asked. Is this the only reason why you killed innocent people? Felix rushed to save Charlotte. Don't collapse. Putting it down to her snow-white face and asking, Do you want this girl to die in my hands? Dietrich politely entered and asked, What do you need from me? Felix said. Is it necessary? This vase of yours is exposing. Felix was busy working on Dietrich without noticing, but she said, Quite a bit of monsters, Vin asked. What? And turning back, having pumped hundreds of monsters, I asked in amazement, What? Those monsters? Are there any stinking stars? Vaughn was getting wet in front. Keep your voice quiet and leave the picture. Monsters climb through it. He was convinced. Vona looked back and thought, The monsters will gather here while Felix trims this damned painting. Then she looked at Dietrich and thought, You can't attack him because it hit me, so why bother? At this rate, you will be in trouble through me. Vona wondered how she could help you and simply said, Dietrich, I trust you. He stood in shock at her words and didn't understand what he wanted to say to him. Having said these words to him, she looked at him and began to act. Charlotte quickly took Felix's hand. Having appreciated his respect, she snatched the picture from her hands and began to flow out of him. Vin shouted, My picture! Charlotte quickly ran towards the gathering, not looking back at Felix. No shock came over her to escape. She quickly climbed onto the railing of the gathering place and turned around to see if the monsters were following her to the gathering place. Dietrich has squandered this by asking Yi, Charlotte, what are you going to earn now? Vaughn confirmed nothing. She was only surprised that the monsters followed her and thought, Right! Come here, it's getting closer to me. Charlotte wrapped it and tightly squeezed the picture in her hands. Her look was dubious. She was remembering the moments she had gone through. After we climbed to another top, the surface of the tree began to change. Never mind, we played in new mines. Time after time, there is a choice between an endless round of stakes and the end. I will definitely choose another option. Charlotte settled on the remains of Dietrich's estate. You live and choose from this motherboard. Having said her remaining words, she lurched back and began to fall to the bottom. The monsters began to follow her. Charlotte! Dietrich shouted her name and quickly rushed to help, without looking back at Felix, but for nothing. Felix looked at him in amazement and tried to stop him. He injected himself in the flesh so that the wound would be transferred to Dietrich. Vin asked, Where have you gone? I'm right here, right behind you. System window. Charlotte sees a fine. Felix was pleased with his actions. So is she truly divine? Life is so valuable, but she just died. It's such a shame, but I just want to have 3 more fun with her. Dietrich was very upset by his behavior. Felix continued to say everything. Since this happened, then you want to amuse me, even if you don't die for a little while? In order to stop Felix, Dietrich launched a fire at him, thereby knocking him out of his hands. He screamed in pain. Having collected his hand, he turned back and thought, What just arrived? What's wrong? Did you throw them at me? For now, Felix cannot comprehend what happened. Dietrich quickly became aware of this moment and immediately attacked him. He beat him up and threw his hand behind his back, pressing him under the guise so that he could not harm himself. Raptum Dietrich turned him over and closed his mouth tightly, touching his hand. He was startled for the first time. What for? Then, having realized it, they began to scream. My hand! It was time for Dietrich to know the ring and to begin to take him away. Having finished, Felix began to give up and grabbed his clothes with his free hand. No, my ring! Please tell me! Felix pulled his coat so hard that he began to tear. He immediately put a mark on Dietrich's temple. Surprised to the point of shock, he was caught in shock. He began to sing in this, and his fear of him faded away. Vin started to scream. This is the mark of the children of the church. It's definitely right away that they don't give me a chance for blessing. Felix began to repatriate and get rich. Have mercy, bless you. I don't want to die here. Thank you. Have mercy on me. Thank you. Seeing his blessing, when they began to guess the soldiers in the war, how they blessed him. Why do I have hallucinations again? Felix then paused and looked at him in shock. What? Why don't you bother me now? Dietrich realized that this robber is not as stinky. And having become angry with all our strength, we hit him in the face. In the face of Dietrich's strong blow, Felix lost his nerve. You were surprised and thought that now you won't be respectful. Having sung in this wine, I felt the sound of monsters, and guessed for Charlotte. Dietrich turned around and shouted, Charlotte! You should search for your sword. Having picked it up and heading towards the monsters in search of Charlotte, in order to recognize him, Dietrich began to break through hundreds of skeletons. Vin cut them Lamayuchi, from Daddy. I want to kill them, but there is no end to them. Just 3 more and I can reach her. We stretch out our hand to the largest number of skeletons, thinking about this, as if a strong fire had rushed in front of him, having buried all the skeletons on its path, leaving no one behind. The skeletons began to burn and fall. Dietrich, as he was descending the exit, could not believe his eyes and was caught. Marvel at the strong fire of fear. No, not at all. Charlotte got lost there. What will happen to her? In a year. Charlotte was able to successfully escape and steal an important painting of monsters for the event. System window. 2 paintings were stolen within the given hour. Charlotte and Dietrich will become their rulers. Charlotte came to you and noticed a sharp pain in her body. More painful. It seems like everything is washing my body. Don't be amazed at the strong pain. You just wanted to marvel at it. Aledaseya? It was as if skeletons were attacking me. After I fell. To think so. To the extent that I have wasted my knowledge, blocking me with myself. She just thought about this, like before her the rapt of that mysterious guy who had met before. Vona was very shocked. Why the one who killed Eric and Hesta and lied? Vaughn asked carefully. T? That little one? The boy stood just a little bit, holding the candle and his hands in his hands. They weren't even surprised at anything. The rapt destroyed the place and began to fully approach Charlotte. She was breathing and drinking water. What do you want to earn? There is nothing to suggest about her. As soon as you reach it, carefully sit down and put the candle down and look at it. Stretch out the bandages to cover the wounds. Vaughn looked at him with surprise. Faces and bandages? A cold sensation appeared on her face, and she was soaked in water. Do you want to force me? He nodded happily in confirmation. She fed him with great vigor. Why don't you welcome me here? There was 3 rubles of rubbish, but if it was watered it. He gave her a bright laugh in confirmation. And I began to open Charlotte's face to heal the wound. Vaughn marveled at the way the boy bandaged her hand and thought, in this child, the ring of fire and the earrings of durability are damned. Who the hell is he? Having thought about this, she decided to calmly ask him, Did you kill Eric? Ah, lad, he has nothing to show for it. You just have to chew the bandages from the buried areas, and you can't recover your wounded hand.